Allô? Ok, ok. Un, deux. Ok. Okay, it's working.
The delegate of government in Brussels, thanks to Dokimos, Martina, and all the staff and all for allow us to bring this idea in practice. Okay, we have this idea that Living Labs is facing a big historical opportunity when the European Union is just balancing research and innovation. We have spent the last 20 years saying we need a new innovation ecosystem in Europe. And I think this is the moment for Living Labs, for the renewal of the European innovation ecosystem. Briefly, I2CAT is a research and innovation center on today about missions and partnerships. We have this general mission, ambitious mission. We see European Union, as a Living Lab union. We think that the singularity of the European innovation model is just that. It's connecting technology and society in a separated way. And since the beginning, we have supported this moment where the European Union has a common strategy, green and digital transition. The Living Labs can support how to do that. We need a new transition, social transition. It's the transition of our innovation ecosystems. We need open, more inclusive, and more collaborative innovation ecosystem just to achieve this green and digital transition. This is why we have started in Catalonia a program we call Collaboratory Catalunya, led by I2CAT and the group of Living Labs of I2CAT, that just trying to put together all collaborators like the official members of ENoLL, but also there are other Living Labs that are not yet members of ENoLL that are springing there, and other labs. This is Catalonia is plenty of labs. We think that the labs maybe is the symbol of the new society, the knowledge society, like the factory was the symbol or is the symbol of the industrial society. We think that this lab is our social innovation structure. This is why we need to put all the labs together in order to make this collaboratory. We see missions and partnerships, European mission and partnerships, as this kind of attempt to stress, to increase the collaboration of the European actors. And this is important for us. What we want in these sessions is just to see how Living Labs form parts of this kind of missions and partnerships alliance. And at the end of the day, we hope we can learn together how to make it possible. Thank you very much. I pass the word to documents.
Thanks, Artur. Dear Catalonia government delegation to the EU and I2CAT representatives, dear heads of units and European Commission representatives, dear distinguished speakers, dear Living Lab experts and participants. Before starting, I would like to thank the organizers, Catalonia government delegation to the EU Brussels and I2CAT for the great hospitality. I would like also to thank our director Martina De Zole and the ENoLL office for having this idea and believing in this idea and bringing us all together here today. It is of great pleasure that I extend a warm welcome to each of you, and your presence today is an indication of the value and importance of the Living Labs and their role in the European Commission missions and partnerships. We have the privilege today to have the missions represented along with projects coordinators of projects that have been funded and involve Living Lab approaches, as well as experts from the Living Lab initiatives. Missions are about fostering innovation and achieving tangible positive impact, and so do Living Labs, because Living Labs enable research through active involvement of citizens and the quadruple helix. And when you have research and also citizen engagement, you have innovation, because actually the point of research is to create value and to create impact. But Living Labs are not projects, and given that, they know very well how to be integrated in projects in order to create value and impact, because Living Labs involve citizens as part of their activities and most importantly as part of the principle of the Living Lab. So Living Labs unify activities of more than one project to give the feeling to the citizens and to the community that it's not about their involvement, it's not about the KPIs of a specific project. This is the project's objective. For citizens, it's about they fight for big challenges, to address big challenges. They don't care about the specific project, but they care about the value that their involvement will bring throughout all the projects, throughout all the missions for their life, the impact for their life. And this is actually what Living Labs do. They bring together the citizens regardless of the projects. The Living Labs are there regardless of the funding of the projects. The Living Labs are blended, very well blended in the community. They are part of the community, they are trusted, and they collaborate together with citizens and all the actors of the quadruple helix, with or without projects. The projects, yes, give the fuel to the researchers in order to continue this, but the Living Lab is that provides the continuation. So by closing, I would say that you cannot single out a specific challenge and work towards this. Patients, cancer patients are not only cancer patients or survivors, but they are also citizens, that they care about activities for healthier soil, cities and oceans. And this is the main concept of a Living Lab. We don't see a specific challenge, but we see the community and how the community can contribute to all the actions that would lead to the objectives of the missions. And you cannot create a Living Lab today to address a challenge of tomorrow. You have either to liaise with Living Labs that are already there, blended in the community and in the regions, or you have to invest in creating a new Living Lab that will provide the impact and the value that we expect in the forthcoming years. Thank you all, and let's enjoy the event today. So now I think it's gonna be me with a presentation. I need the... Okay, I'm Evdokimos Konstantinidis, chair of the European Network of Living Labs and also researcher at the Lab of Medical Physics and Digital Innovation at the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. ENoLL is a non-for-profit association founded back in 2006, having more than 500 historically certified members and more than 160 active members worldwide. Our mission is to become an ambassador of the European values of co-creation and open innovation. And we provide for our members a lot of services for the living labs that to support the development and creation of new living labs through the certification and labeling, capacity building for living labs to grow up, and also the working groups, the active working groups, which is about the living labs that have already experienced and they can lead innovation in their domain. This is the definition that we use in ENoLL. So living labs are open innovation ecosystem in real-life environments based on a systematic user co-creation approach that integrates research and innovation activities in communities, placing citizens at the center of innovation. So we can think living labs as intermediates that bring together all the different stakeholders, actors of the quadruple helix, regardless of the domain of activity of the living lab, being health or water living lab or soil living lab. They share some principles: co-creation, orchestration, multi-stakeholder participation, active user involvement, real-life setting, and multi-method approach. But let's see the definition one by one, the components of the definition. So we speak about open innovation ecosystems. What do we mean by open innovation? When we see innovation is, when we look for innovation, it's about creating value, staying relevant to the needs of the user. When we speak about open innovation is that our organization, our living lab, does not rely only on internal resources in order to create innovation, but involves also external. So it's about not being afraid of sharing and exchanging knowledge among the actors in order to create the innovation that we need. Real life environments. You see here I have the room of the hospital and the city. In labs, or at least how it used to be years ago, you were bringing a sample to the lab in order to experiment. Now we go to the lab, to the real environment in order to experiment there. So we don't change the environment. We don't bring some samples. We do the experimentation in the real life environment. And this is a real life environment, this room of a hospital. And we can run experiments here, but we need at least the patient, otherwise it's not possible. And the patient alone cannot guarantee that we can run the experiment, because we need also the doctors. We need the experts. We need also the technology. We need the family in order to create trust with the patient, in order to make sure that the feedback we get is a real feedback. And we need also the ethics manager. And of course we need also funding. Otherwise this is not possible. And the same happens in all the domains, like soil or agriculture or in urban living labs. So you see how many humans are involved in order for the living lab to create value. And each of the humans, we know humans has, specific characteristics, they have likes, dislikes, preferences, and the living lab has to address all these preferences and needs in order to make sure that everybody is happy. So we need to reply what's in it for them. Every stakeholder that is involved needs to see the value. Otherwise, we don't speak about long-term sustainability of the experimentation. So it should be clear that everybody works for creating value for the others. It's not like participatory design or bringing people, actors together in order to create value for the patient. No. The value should be for the patient, the value should be for the farmers, the value should be for the government, the value should be for everyone. And this is the puzzle that the living labs solve before starting the experimentation. And we say in the definition that living labs are about systematic user co-creation approach. And this is because participatory design is not something new. It was not invented by living labs. What living labs did was to have systematic user co-creation, which means tools and methodologies for each of the steps of the innovation, tools that are adapted to specific needs of the domain or of the people that are involved or of the volume of the people that are involved. And as I was discussing before, living labs are used for research, but living labs do also research for their own methodologies in order to improve and to adapt to the needs of the research. So here you can see a tool, a methodology, which is based on the design thinking, and you can see that we go from the problem space to the solution space and deployment space. But then the value of the living labs is that they close the loop. So the deployment feeds again the living lab and the innovation in order to increase the value that is provided or to pivot. So as I said before, it's not something new. Quadruple helix and participatory design, they're not new ideas that brought by living labs, but living labs try to provide this systematic approach and methodology and framework. And living labs are trustful regional ecosystem because they are very well blended with a regional ecosystem. You cannot find a living lab in Greece that is very well connected with the community in Australia. This is where we have many living labs working in regions. And as you can see, there are many domains that living labs can be applied. On the right, you can see the domain of the living of our members, the domain of expertise of our members, while on the left side, you can see that when Living Lab started, they started as an ICT approach for ICT, but now we have soil, we have health, urban, and many different domains. And if you have a Living Lab really well blended, incorporated in a region that works very well, and then let's take the example that it's health, and then you have another a mobility Living Lab that is very well in the same region, but focuses on mobility. Imagine how easy it is to see mobility and health. For instance, you want to look for the environment, the factors that affect the quality of life of patients because they are using public transportation. This means that you need to bring two living labs together in order to go your study through this without having to distinguish this is a mobility problem or this is a health problem. No, this is a patient or a citizen problem. I have to bring all the tools, the living labs together to work. And this actually really, in living labs, it is possible because living labs know how to collaborate together. They use the same methodology, they use the same approach, they trust each other because of the chain of trust of ENoLL. And the only difference is that they are experts in different domains. So this is why we do believe a lot, and we have started and we have a working group in harmonizing the living labs. It's for the benefit of the researchers. So everything is about learning from each other and building trust. And building trust takes time. You cannot start a living lab today and having all the people trusting you next day. You can do it, but then you get false feedback because it takes a lot of time to make citizens give you the real feedback. No, I don't like this. It's very difficult when you do research, especially in a 3-year project. Imagine that you meet farmers and you ask for the feedback and they say, oh, I like this. This is what you're gonna get as a feedback because the farmer thinks that make you happy if they give you positive feedback. But getting the real feedback, I don't like this. This makes my life difficult. I'm not gonna use this after the end of the project. In order to get this feedback, you need time and you need to train them and to explain to them how important it is to get the real feedback, not the good feedback. While living labs, I hope it is not clear, but at least I created the framework for this. We de-risk the innovation, we bridge research and market gap. We have insights into the adoption because living labs are there even after the project. So living labs, if we have an innovation, if we have an outcome, a tool of a project, and the project finishes, the citizens are still there, the living lab is still there, and they collect feedback. They continue collecting feedback. I use one slide that I used for the missions of the university just to show that, as I said before, when we have research and community engagement, which is the third mission of the university that is discussed, it's when we have the innovation. So as Artur said before, it's research and citizens in order to go to the innovation, research and innovation. We believe a lot that Living Lab is an approach that needs to be taught from to schools, even from the primary school. The primary school is the first place that we innovate. You know, we take a paper and we try to make an airplane, and then we study the competition, how our classmates do it in order to throw it longer. And this is where the innovation starts, or where we start to innovate. And Living Lab should be there, because Living Lab is not a tool that you bring in or not. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of bringing together people. So this slide, I would like to show that we have the project. You can see 3 projects on the top, but the Living Lab is there. The Living Lab is a community. And you can see here the duration of the projects. And you can see that a Living Lab can have 2 projects as one for the community, or even more challenging, when there are no projects, the Living Labs continue their efforts and their activities, because you cannot have Living Lab on demand or patients on demand. Like, I have a project, I need 10 patients now, and then I finish and that's it. They have to feel part of it. We enable research. I'm not entering into details, but as you can see, we provide also the tools that the researchers need. We have been, one of our projects has been featured as best practice of social science humanities from the European Commission in research infrastructures. We have a lot of activities as ENoLL, but we're very proud of the activities of our members as well. And this is the recognition that we have seen up to date, that ENoLL appears in many, Living Labs appear in many calls, so not even just Living Labs, but the principles of Living Labs, which is the most important thing, the principles of Living Labs to be there in the calls. We have been mentioned as one of the 5 flagships of the new European Innovation Agenda, and we continue the discussions with the missions, which make us happy, because we can bring our knowledge and expertise to you, so you can use it as you see more impactful for the projects. Finally, I would like to invite you to Timisoara next September, where is the flagship event. As it was last year, it was in Barcelona, a successful event in Barcelona. This year it's going to be successful in Timisoara. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. We are really excited to have this discussion with such a distinguished panel to really address what we have started analyzing during the opening. So I would like to invite Kerstin Rosenow, Head of Unit of Research and Innovation, DG Agri, and Head of Mission Secretariat for Mission A Soil Deal for Europe. Philippe Froissart, Head of Unit for Policy Coordination and Urban Transitions for the Mission 100 Climate Neutral Cities by 2030. Philip Talkens, Head of Unit Climate, please, you can start sitting. Climate and Planetary Boundaries from DGRTD, Deputy Mission Manager, Mission Adaptation to Climate Change. Elisabetta Balzi, Head of Unit Mission and Partnership on Oceans and Waters from DGRTD for the Mission Restore Our Oceans and Waters. And Jan-Willem van der Loo, Cancer Team Lead, Science and Stakeholder, DGRTD for Mission Cancer and Senior Experts on Cancer Research. So thank you very much for being here. We are going to discuss how Living Labs are actually contributing to achieving the mission objectives. And I would like to start with addressing the panelists with one general question on apologies, it's fixed. No, we need to move. Oh, okay. You're tall, Philippe. So, as we are aiming to address some of the most pressing challenges of our time through the European Commission missions, understanding the current landscape of progress is really crucial. So could you please provide an update on the state of play of your respective missions, with a particular focus on how citizen engagement has been integrated and what is the impact that has been reached so far? And moreover, considering the collaborative nature of living labs, how have these environments contributed to the advancement of your mission objectives? For us, it's really important to start talking about the impact that we see start happening. And also looking ahead, what potential you see for living labs to further enhance and accelerate the achievement of each mission goals. So you have 7 minutes. We need to recover a little bit of time. So I would like to start with Kerstin.
Okay, thanks a lot, Martina, for the introduction and giving us 3 very comprehensive questions where we could each, I think, speak half of the morning. Yeah? So, but okay, we'll do our best to do this in 7 minutes. So it also forces us to focus on the essential, which is great, I suppose. So for the soil mission, we have living labs, as you know, as really the center of the implementation of the mission, because our headline goal is to establish 100 living labs and lighthouses to get to healthy soils in Europe by 2050. So it's really integral part of what we believe is necessary to address the main societal challenges, soil health, without which we have no healthy food, no carbon storage, no biodiversity, and so on. So it's really one of the key societal challenges of our time, because soils are in a dire state. So that having said, with regards to what's happening, I mean, apart from the living labs, where I say a couple of words in state of play and advancement, so we are still working on an ambitious research and innovation program. So we've invested more than 400 million under Horizon Europe. 50 projects are working, and we had identified social science and also business related socio-economic research. We have a lot of research already on biochemistry, physical conditions of soil, but we do not have enough on social science and socio-economic and business models. And there we have a lot that we have put underway, and where projects are currently starting to address these challenges. Then with regards of the living labs, which is the second building block, we have 4. The advances are that we have launched our first calls of living labs, and we have discussed here already before actually starting this meeting, so how innovative are living labs exactly, and I mean, is this not something we do since many years and so on? I must say for us not, and to implement a real living lab approach, also as was stated before, and get the conditions, get a real bottom-up approach, getting the right selection of actors that work together, and then on top of that we have the challenge, we have to do this transnationally. I mean, it's a local concept, but we in our calls we have to have transnational call. And we still want to have the real actors, the farmers, the foresters, the urban managers as the center, as the patients, as I heard. So this is quite complex. So we have invested a lot into awareness raising. We were probably a bit slower than other missions to start. But for us it was because we wanted to implement the real, genuine concept of living labs. And we were a bit afraid of our first call of living labs, so in order to see whether we get a response. And I mean, the response was very good. So we had, for the first living labs, 5 were selected, 44 proposals. So we had to disappoint a greater part of the community. So which is always 2 sides of success. But also as a message here, okay, this will be consecutive calls under our mission, as it's the main theme to get up to 100. So it's not lost. So other opportunities will come. So we have started building this, and also the network, of course, of those living labs. So it's too early because projects will just be starting to say a lot. So we have also had a top-down, let's say, call on a topic where we encouraged urban living labs, which is a bit more difficult in our area, but projects are coming along, and so we're really getting started now. We will have the first 25 living labs now with 250 testing sites all over Europe and all pedoclimatic conditions starting to work. So we're really excited to see how these projects get along and what we can learn also to improve future corals. On the third building block, state of play, so monitoring, soil monitoring and indicators is absolutely great for us that we are at the right time, because as you might have seen, one of the last Green Deal legislative pieces which still went through in terms of a proposal and where the approach is going to be finalized still before this legislative is the Soil Monitoring and Resilience Directive. So the last public good in Europe which is not protected by European legislation is on its way of being protected, and the Soil Mission and the Living Labs are going to be delivering the intelligentsia for this. So we are going to be delivering indicators, we are going to be delivering let's say scientific advice on how to set up the soil districts under this. So it's really the perfect example how policy and how science and in the end users can work together to work on this. So this is great. And also the Soil Observatory, which we've set up together with GRC, which is now able to monitor a baseline for soil health with 17 indicators. You should check it out really. Go to GRC. You can even for your house, you can check out the state of the soil your house is built on a number of 17 indicators, which is really quite fascinating. And it's accessible for everybody, and it's necessary for us to see, okay, where is soil health and how can we monitor the impact of the actions that we actually do. And last but not least, citizens engagement. We are really taking that very seriously. So we've invested in really, I mean, apart from the Living Lab, which is part of this, obviously, but we have invested a lot in setting up networks of soil advisors, so advisors for the farmers, education at schools. We have projects working on syllabi, on getting soil into education. So we have a network of soil ambassadors, apart from our mission board members, in order to spread the word more closely. We've done more than 400 events, also genuine citizens engagement events. So, I mean, not just awareness raising, but engaging and trying to find out, so what are the real concerns. And last but not least, obviously also the Soil Mission Manifesto, which has now over 3,000 signatures, a growing number also of municipality and regions, which is crucial for us, where ENoLL has also helped us to raise awareness. So I'm not sure that Catalonia is already on it. So
They will.
So we have a lot of Spanish regions that have signed already, but okay. So this is it. And then to your questions, the other two questions, where I don't know how many minutes I've used. So, but on the one more, okay, on the collaborative nature of living labs, of course, this is central. So this bottom up, because in our area, as I said, we have a lot of soil science already, but we have to close the science-practice divide, not also only the science policy, but the science-practice divide. And the one goal, or the one mechanism, or one of the mechanisms of making that work and reaching out to really end users to make sure that in a local context, by a definition of what local innovation is, in all the 13 pedoclimatic conditions of Europe, we can make progress applying innovative or getting other innovative soil protection practices, technologies going. This obviously is key. So it's also a more social science, let's say, focused approach. And I mean, there is no solution that can be created at our level, at European level, that fits all, but it's the other way around. It needs to be created at local level, and it will also inspire the neighbors. So, I mean, maybe one thing to say, we have on top of that a fantastic tool under the Common Agricultural Policy, which is a bit similar to Living Labs, which is the operational groups under the European Innovation Partnership Agriculture. So we will be counting on an even bigger network work of also solutions that will be experimented under our living labs to be scaled up under the Common Agricultural Policy.
Yeah.
And this is something which we are going to work on a lot in the future, and looking forward to the first outcomes of this.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Kirsten. And yes, the good thing is that actually there will be time also to measure the impact. It has been a process that has started from the very first step with the lead of the European Commission, in this case, really engaging the Living Lab community. We have other examples, Philippe, where actually in cities it was quite natural to have living labs because they were already there. So maybe you can take the second.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As you can see from the slide, this is my smiling face. As a joke, every morning when I wake up, I think the mission is a very good idea, and in the evening that it is a terrible idea or awful idea. So probably that photo was taken in the afternoon. So, but still, we are in the morning, so I'm in a great mood, and I will be able to give you an update of what happens in the city's mission. So I'm just leaning a little bit because otherwise I will be blinded. So we have two objectives in the city's mission. The first objective is to have 100 climate neutral cities by the end of 2030. And the second objective is to take advantage of the work that will be done in those 100 cities to help the remaining cities in Europe to become climate neutral by the horizon of 2050, thereby fulfilling our objective in the Green Deal to have Europe as a climate neutral continent by 2050. So these are the two objectives, and we are focusing very much, and we have been focusing very much these last couple of years on the 100 cities. So we selected these 100 cities in 2021. And I suspect that the cities, when they learned that they were selected, they thought, well, that's it, we have it. We are going to become climate neutral by 2030. And we told them, hang on a minute, you still have to work a little bit in order to do that. First of all, you have to develop your strategy for becoming climate neutral by 2030. And we invited all the cities that were the mission cities to develop what we call a climate city contract. So a climate city contract is a document which has three parts, three components. The first one is a commitment part, where we invite the local authorities, but also the regional authorities, the national authorities in some cases, the public and the private stakeholders to commit to the objective of the mission. The second document that we have in the climate city contract is an action plan. In that action plan, the city indicates the areas that they have where they will reduce their emission of greenhouse gases. So it's a strategy for reducing greenhouse gas emission. And the third component, which is actually a little bit more innovative, is the investment plan. So we ask them also to identify the investments that are necessary to implement their action plan on climate neutrality. So where are we now as regards the implementation of the mission? We have actually received already quite a large number of climate city contracts, and we have reviewed those climate city contracts, and for those climate city contracts that were reviewed positively, we have awarded to the city a mission label. So we have actually 33 cities already now, a third of the 100 cities that started with the mission, that have been awarded with a mission label. We are presently reviewing another batch of 23 cities, and we are hopeful that by the end of this year, all the cities that are participating in the mission, the 100 cities that are coming from the EU member states, and the 12 cities that are coming from the associated countries, will have submitted their climate city contract. So we are therefore moving into a different phase now. So as I said, in the last 2 years, we were focusing on the development of that strategy for climate neutrality, the development of these climate city contracts, and now we are moving towards the implementation of this climate city contract. That means that the biggest focus of our attention now is on investment. And we have put in place already the tools and the support to the cities so that we can provide them with financial advisory services so that they can increase, this help can increase the maturity of the projects that they have identified in their investment plan. And we will help them identify the necessary investment that they will need to have to roll out this investment plan. So this is the situation where we are. So in a way, we are moving from a situation where the mission was, where we were saying that the city's mission is good for the environment, is good for the citizens, to a situation where we say it's also good for business. Because when we looked at the investments that are necessary for these 100 cities to become climate neutral, we come to a figure which is of 650 billion euro. So it goes without saying that the cities, the local authorities, the municipalities will never find this amount of money to reach climate neutrality. But at the end of the day, this money doesn't come from them. It will actually come for a large extent from the private sector. About 85% of these 650 billion will actually come from the private sector. So that is for us the next challenge. So where do we stand as regard the use of living labs? As you said yourself, I mean, living labs are the natural candidates for supporting the implementation of the mission. And we have, because it's about co-creation, it's about rapid prototyping and testing, and it's about scaling up of innovative solutions. So all those elements are there, and the elements that we need to have in cities and the cities that are participating in the mission to roll out their strategy of climate neutrality. We have quite a number of good examples where this is already taking place. So I'm just going to give you 3 examples. In Torino, to start with, which is a city that was very active in a number of projects, and particularly in Horizon Europe project, which is called Climaboro, which is talking about urban regeneration. And what is interesting is that the city lab in Torino offers the entire city as a testing ground for innovative solutions. And that's typically what we are looking for in the city's mission for living labs. The second example that I could name is Eindhoven, which is another mission city, where Eindhoven participated in the past in Horizon 2020 in a project that is called ENoLL. I'm looking at my paper because I don't remember them by heart. There they actually worked and developed solutions and strategies to enhance climate and water resilience. And of course, since we are hosted by the Generalitat de Catalunya, last but not least, I have to mention Barcelona. And Barcelona is a pioneering city among the pioneering cities. So they have been very quick at developing their strategy on climate neutrality. They were awarded with the mission label already, like the other cities in Spain. Incidentally, Spain is a shining example of what should be done in Europe. I'm just saying that not because I'm here in Spanish territory, but because this is the truth. And Barcelona is being very active in a pilot project that we have supported in the mission platform, which is called UrbanU, and also very active in an Horizon Europe project, which is called Green in City, which talks also about urban regeneration. So these are 3 examples of 3 cities that are participating in the mission. But when you look at the cities that we have in the mission, 76 out of the 112 cities that are participating in the mission have or are hosting a living lab. So there is room for more. And that's when it comes to the next step and the future expectations from our side. I really would like to invite those living labs to contribute more intensively to the implementation of the climate city contracts in their city. And this is an open invitation for them really to get closer to the local authorities and to the municipalities in order to offer their services and their help and their support to roll out the strategy on climate neutrality. Maybe there is another request that I could make to ENoLL, which is about the sharing of experience, the solutions that have been developed within these living labs to the mission platform that we have in the city's mission, because that's an opportunity to share these good practices to a much broader community than the 100 cities that we have as part of the first objective of the mission.
Thank you very much.
Did I respect the time? Very good. So you have more time for you.
And the good thing is also that we are about to launch a new working group that is on urban innovation that is going to collect also these best practices, and ENoLL is also part of the Living in EU movement. So so we hope to be able to populate the mission platform a lot as well. So Philippe, what about climate adaptation and climate change?
Thank you very much. The other Philippe is smiley in the morning and less in the evening. And I will add another layer of difficulty, because adaptation to climate change, of course, is indispensable and adds up to the need to mitigate in cities and also in rural areas. And that is the challenge of the EU mission on adaptation to climate change. Often we hear, isn't it enough to mitigate? We need to adapt as well. Yes, I'm afraid. Yes, the impacts of climate change are being felt. And if as you mentioned, Catalonia, of course, they have experienced droughts and great difficulties, but they're also very well organized in this mission. And I want to flag this because they are not only an example in the cities mission, but very good also in the adaptation mission, because they see the challenge really in their territory. They have mobilized the research community. They have an excellent computing center providing climate scenarios at high resolution. Also the governance is also very good there, but also in other areas. We have now in the mission 311 regions and local authorities participating. They don't all have the same level of activity, I need to be honest. They signed the charter, which is a very good sign, because they had discussions in each region on their level of ambition. And some are very active. And we have now 32 projects funded by Horizon Europe, providing information or services to the local authorities and regional authorities on adaptation to climate change. And the type of services that are being provided are very different. Some need to know better what risks they are facing. Some wish to know what are the solutions that are available to them. Some need to know better how to mobilize funding to implement adaptation projects. And the mission is able to provide services that are really tailored to the needs of the local authorities, and this is fundamental. Your question was about also the participation of citizens. I think most, if not all, of the partners have understood that without the citizens, this is just impossible. So it's quite natural, but we don't prescribe, of course, the way this needs to be done. They address these questions, the involvement of citizens, differently in Denmark and in Greece and elsewhere in Europe. We are united in diversity in Europe. We fully keep the diversity and try in this mission on adaptation to climate change really to listen very carefully to the needs of the regions and the local authorities and provide them services that will be useful to them. And I'm very glad to be here, and thank you for the invitation to this event, because to be honest, I didn't know about your organization. And I've been working on research and on climate change since a while. But it's nice to see that there are so many entities and so many living labs being active. But I tried to find information on which living labs has or is addressing adaptation to climate change. Not as a single issue, it's not their focus, but do they consider adaptation to climate change within their activities? I'm sure some do, but this information is not easily accessible, at least not on the web. So that is perhaps something for discussion later today, because adaptation touches on almost every economic sector. And it needs to be addressed explicitly. It's a difficult issue because the solutions are of systemic nature, and designing and implementing systemic solutions is not that easy, but this is exactly what we try to do. And whether it's called mission or living labs or whatever, innovation or progress, doesn't matter. What matters is what is the impact that we can have on the ground to show the transformative power of research and innovation. That's the goal of the mission. And that's what we all try from different angles. Often I hear some comments by some non-experts who say, but these missions are all different. Why? They should be the same. No, they should not be the same, because the goal of research is precisely to test different solutions from different angles and see what works and doesn't work. And there's something unique that we have in the mission, is that in principle we should have also the right to fail. So, I've done some research. Most of the results are failures. Let's be honest. I know it's very difficult to explain to public authorities that we are spending public money and sometimes we fail, but that's how we learn. We should not fail every time, of course. But this is unique, because in other policies there is no right to fail. And I would like to really stress with the living labs the need to test all kinds of solutions and carefully study their impact and their transformative power. This can be done in practice, if you, Living Labs, you wish to apply to the calls of Horizon Europe in the mission work program, so there are 9 calls open now, the deadline is on the 18th of September, that's an opportunity, but there are also other ways, through regional policies, through live projects, through national funding schemes, and the goal of the mission is to have an initial investment that comes from research and innovation, and then the other activities that cannot be funded through Horizon should, in principle, be funded by other funding programs, be it European funding programs, national or regional ones. And this is, in my view, the most difficult bit, is to build this financing structure across funding instruments from the European level and the national level to deploy activity, because in the end, the goal is to go beyond what research and innovation could do in the past and can still do now to bring transformative change on the ground. And if you want to know exactly where the mission stands, have a look at the mission portal. There's also a short report on our activities in the last year, and it gives an overview of the participants, who to relate to, what are the projects active, and I hope you will find the relevant information if you want to join the activities.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Philippe. And we are having here in the room also the leader of our working group of energy and environment. We are doing a lot on climate, so challenge accepted. Valentino, we will work on this. And also the missions have been an example of co-creation themselves, like Horizon Europe, that it was the very first framework program co-created with the citizens, with the researchers, at least in the intentions, right? So among the different missions, probably the one that was one of the most felt, it was the cancer mission, that is also perceived as a huge problem for the European citizens. So where are we now on the cancer mission, Conquer Cancer?
Yeah, I think I would like to echo my colleagues. I think we are just at the beginning. We have now 49 projects running. Several of them have just started. So when it comes to Living Labs, I would say we can only see the first glimpse of what they can achieve. But what we see is, compared to the past, there is much more interest and much more participation of using the Living Labs approach and other participatory approaches in these projects. So I think we see that also when it comes to working with physicians, we see that there is more the tendency in these projects, at least, to use Living Lab approaches. I'm not sure if they are really would really fully classify as a Living Lab approach, but they're definitely participatory and definitely, I think, a good way of increasing the interaction with between physicians and patients. And that's important in cancer, because in cancer, we always talk about that the patient should be in the center. But unfortunately, drug discovery is not patient-centered. Much needs to be done to change that. So this is one way. So what in these projects, for example, is happening, that through these approaches, there's much more attention to what we call patient-reported outcome measures and patient-reported experience measures. So, and this information you only get when you really work closely with patients. Now, to give you an update on where we stand when it comes to citizen engagement involvement, so we, of course, also organized focus groups. And I must confess that in the beginning we were all struggling with this, because it turns out you need really professionals to do this right. But yesterday we published actually one of those efforts, which were 6 focus groups we did end in 2022 in 6 different countries. I mean, the number of people in these focus groups are small, but nevertheless it was very interesting to have with them discussions on, health prevention, screening, early detection, and you see that people are struggling with, some don't want to know about cancer because it's a big taboo. Unfortunately, it still is, because cancer means, death, it means misery. Others are really not aware of even the symptoms, and so that is something, it's known. So we're trying to work also on this. It's good for people to be more health literate. But in terms of citizen engagement, we have then moved more on to setting up a bus roadshow. This bus roadshow is touring this summer. It started on the 9th of May, Europe Day, in Vilnius in Lithuania, and is going to 2 or 3 countries. after Lithuania is going to Poland and to Romania. And we already see there is so much interest in this sort of citizen engagement / communication initiative, attracting so many people who want to know more, that we are considering to extend this pilot, hopefully next year to more countries. Apart from other efforts, I think the Living Labs, the most efforts we see now is in these projects. But I think it's too early days to really say, what is coming out of it. But fortunately, you did invite the coordinator of the 4P Ken project, Marius Giantas, so he's in the room. So I think what you see already is that if you go local, like this project is doing in different communities, you get really interesting results, and you start seeing that the health literacy is increasing, and you discover other problems that I think through research could maybe be solved. I think that is where I would like to stop. I can talk a long time,
Yes,
but I think let's keep it short. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian. So, Elisabetta, seas, waters.
Ocean, seas and inland
Yes.
waters. So many thanks, Martina. Many thanks to ENoLL and to the region of Catalonia for hosting us today. And I think, as my colleagues already illustrated, the concept that you're using in the Living Labs, it's a key concept for our mission. So I think there is really an equation. And also I would like to mention that the role of the regions is very important, and we are, Catalonia is, by the way, part of our mission, very active, and we will look forward to further collaborate with them as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's in our mission, what is the state of play, what have we done and what are we doing, what we have in the planning. First of all, we have very ambitious objectives. We have 3 main objectives: to restore our ocean and waters. We always work with the hydrosphere as a whole system. So restoring ecosystems and biodiversity by 2030. Reducing pollution, again, in ocean, seas and inland waters by 50%, plastic, microplastic, nutrient chemicals, and a carbon neutral, circular and zero emission blue economy. In addition to these 3 very ambitious objectives, ambitious targets, we have 2 enablers which are very important. And the first enabler is the public mobilization. So the citizens' engagement, it's a key enabler of our mission, I think of all missions, and the second enabler of a digital ocean, digital knowledge, and that's why we are building a digital twin of the ocean, also with citizen engagement. Now, so the citizen engagement is key. We have up to now, like in the other mission, selected and invested through our framework program, specifically the mission work programs, substantial investments. We have more than 50 projects up and running with more than 400 million euros investment. And some of them are dedicated to the enabler of public mobilization. So we have at least 7 running projects, but more upcoming, really with a focus of all activities on public mobilization for more than 70 million euros. But on top of that, all our projects are asked to have engagement activities. So, and you will hear later some of our projects. We are working through lighthouses. For us, the lighthouses, we have 4 lighthouses, which are the sites, the basins. In our cases, it's the sea basins and river basins, where we are going to implement and test the solutions, where again the Living Labs have a key role to play. And you will hear, Fedra, for example, is here present for the Mediterranean Lighthouse. You will hear how those coordination and support action for each of the sea basins or river basins are also developing Living Labs within the basins. So this role, it's also very important. Now, in addition to our projects, we have also, like colleagues on our missions, we have a charter where through this charter we are engaging, mobilizing multitudes, communities which go far beyond our projects. So there we have an investment already. We have nearly 600 adhesions with more than 5 billion investments in actions which are not necessarily our program, they are beyond our program. And there, by the way, Catalonia is participating, Barcelona is also participating. We have a very broad range of participation from the national governments to regions, cities, in our case, islands, ports, fisheries communities, all sort of, also citizens associations and youth, very important. We are also supporting, for example, also through 5 missions, the European Solidarity Corps, which is volunteering support to youth to, in our case, to restore the oceans, but it's also applied in the other mission. Just to give some examples of what is already happening. What we are doing in our mission, so through the charter we mobilize the communities, but then we want to support them. So what we are doing now, we have just closed a call for technical assistance. We are offering assistance to those communities, particularly in this case to islands, ports, fisheries communities, to build their transition agendas in a participatory way. So this is the co-creation element of your living labs here. You recognize this element through this assistance that we are providing. And we are not stopping there, so this is the assistance to, we will support nearly 100 communities in this way, but in our current open call for proposal, we are amplifying this, so there is a topic which will amplify this assistance to the communities, again with an approach which is really living lab type of approach, to help those communities, typical of our mission. So we are speaking about, for example, small islands. Typically, it's a living lab. I did not see in your presentation, and I hope you have a working group also on this area, because we are supporting them to build their transition agendas and then to implement. And then in order to implement the agendas locally, it's very important the collaboration, for example, with the regions. For example, we are establishing memorandum of cooperation with regions, and we would like to invite also the region of Catalonia to consider that, in order to implement those agendas which are built locally, also in collaboration also with structural funds. We are investing with, of course, with research innovation funds and many other programs, but the synergies with structural funds and the regions, it's key. So this is just to give a flavor of what we are doing, what we have in the pipeline, and to highlight that this living lab approach is key for us. We, of course, we very much welcome the ENoLL addition to our charter. I'm not sure you are already part of it. And it's very important, very important, so that we reinforce this collaboration.
Thank you very much, Elisabetta. Thank you all for really sharing with us where we are and how living labs are actually contributing. I would like to have, and sorry, we only have one mic, unfortunately, so maybe for Kerstin. So I would like to ask you a second question on Mission Soil, that we know has really truly embraced the living lab approach, and it is really, the living lab approach is helping achieving the mission objectives, but also alongside, so before or after or in parallel, we need to see the EU partnership agroecology has also adopted the approach. So how do you envision the synergy between these two initiatives, as it is a clear potential synergy between missions and partnerships?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, that was something which was clearly, let's say, for the two instruments that are under the same lead, let's put it like that. Okay, the first synergy is that the person in my team who is responsible for the living labs under the soil mission also has a leg into the agroecology partnership to make sure that there is an exchange. But it was for us also a means to get a critical mass, so of living labs up on the ground to really influence a real decision on the ground, from the ground. So that was quite important. So we have a sort of institutionalized, let's say, cooperation where there is an exchange. Because in the end, so the living labs under the agroecology partnership and the soil mission and agroecological practices are by definition very often linked to soil friendly or soil improving soil health, let's say, practices as well. So there will be a lot of synergies between the two. So I don't think we can talk about overlaps. So because it will just multiply, let's say, the impact actions that we will co-create under living labs will have on the ground. And we share really the common main characteristics, so which is important. So co-creation, user-centered, place-based, transdisciplinarity, multi-actor approach, real-life setting. So all of this we share. So we are a bit further down the line with the soil mission, and therefore we can inspire the agroecology partnership. So which is great because there, as it's a partnership with the member states, which are also going to be working a lot more at regional level per se. So this is really going to give, let's say, an extra opportunity, so to explore that. So we will also aim, of course, for an exchange of knowledge and methods and experiences with the agroecology living labs. And for this, we also have a support structure. So we have a ENoLL as the support structure catering really for the needs of living labs and lighthouses funded under the soil mission, but this will be further extended to the agroecology living lab. And we really aim at creating a common knowledge hub, so to make sure that these experiences are really shared, and that we can have a similar approach at both sides, but also learn. And it's just a greater mass that we achieve with this. Like I have said before, for us, I mean, having our 100 living labs under the soil mission with around 1,500 testing sites, so it doesn't sound so great of a magnitude, but if you see that this means 1,500 testing sites all over, local testing sites all over Europe, which are going to be multiplied by another network of agroecology living labs, plus upscaling under the CAP, under the operation groups of the European Innovation Partnership. This is in the end something which can really make a change and really make a difference in what I said in the very beginning, so closing the science or innovation and practice divide. So the cooperation is inbuilt, the co-creation is ensured, then of course the agroecology living lab is going to adapt to the specific needs, further the approach, but all in all, I think this is something which is really going to make us help to get progress on the ground.
Thank you. This is a very good practice of cooperation between different programs. So, and actually it's also about replicability of what is found in living labs. And this leads me also to the question to Philippe, that actually we know that living labs have been an integral part of the climate neutral nation, but also as we reflect now on the achievement that we have had, how do we envision this expanding also internationally? And specifically, how can we ensure the replicability of the solutions that have been discovered through the living labs in Europe, also at a global level?
Thank you, Martina. I understand that in the E of ENoLL there is a little bit of I, which is international.
Yeah.
And I saw from the previous presentation that 10% of your living labs are actually outside Europe. And the good news is that for the cities mission, we have also an international dimension. It's not, strictly speaking, in the European cities mission. It is in an initiative that we have, which is the urban transition mission of Mission Innovation. So maybe I should say a few words about Mission Innovation. It's a global initiative that was launched at COP21, and the objective is to promote the use of clean energy in the world. So there are actually two dimensions, the one which is a little bit more political, which is the clean energy ministerial, and there is Mission Innovation, which focuses more on the use of innovation to promote the deployment of clean energy solutions in the world. So there are quite a number of members of Mission Innovation at global level. So you have the US, you have Japan, you have Saudi Arabia, you have India, and so on. You have Brazil. I'm not going to name them all. You can look at the website. There are a number of European member states that's also a member of Mission Innovation. But the interest of this initiative is that it develops missions like the one we have, similarly to the one that we have in Europe, in Horizon Europe, but at global level with international partners. And as part of the missions of Mission Innovation, as I said, we have one which is focusing on urban transition, which is the Urban Transition Mission, and which is de facto the international dimension of our European Cities Mission. So we use this initiative of Mission Innovation in the Urban Transition Mission to promote what we are doing in Europe in terms of strategy for developing the strategy for climate neutrality. And the other good news is that ENoLL is actually an active member of the Urban Transition Mission, as an active support member. And we are very pleased and very happy to see the involvement of ENoLL in the Urban Transition Mission, because it's about sharing of experience and good practices and developing capacity in the cities that are around the world and that are committed to this transition pathway to climate neutrality. So we are very happy to have you on board. We would be very happy to have a stronger involvement of the living labs in the activities of the Urban Transition Mission. And I think there are real opportunities for that. So when it comes, for instance, to sharing good practices and sharing solutions, innovative solutions that have been developed in living labs, we need to have a platform to promote those solutions and to explain to other cities what has been done, and so that they can be replicated at their level in their city. And for that, we have actually put aside some budget to launch a platform which is called the Urban Transition Mission Center, which is the equivalent of what we have in Europe with the Mission Platform for the Cities Mission, which is a portal where you can find all the solutions and fact sheets and projects that have been developed and that have been supported in the past, where you have genuine solutions that can be deployed on the ground by cities across the globe. And I'm very happy to see that ENoLL also is participating actively in the Urban Transition Mission Center. And so that, I think, is an opportunity for us in Europe to share our experience with other partners across the globe. So we have actually around 100 cities in that network of cities at global level in the Urban Transition Mission. And they are located really everywhere. You have some in Japan, you have in Africa, you have in the US, including in the US, I have to say. Latin America, Asia, I mean, you can look at the list that is very interesting to see. And cities with different background as well. So you have mega cities in Africa, which you can imagine for them, the challenge of climate neutrality is huge. And you have cities that are extremely developed, like in Japan and the US, which have very different issues to tackle. But I think the added value of this network is precisely because we have this diversity in. So there are genuine opportunities in the future, also as when it comes to the type of project that we can support, where we could have the involvement of living labs. And I'm thinking in particular of the type of projects and support that can be provided by European Partnership, which is the Driving Urban Transition Partnership, which is a co-funded partnership that we are supporting in Horizon Europe, which has a budget of about 350 million and which has the participation of all EU member states. And we select and we support projects in DUT, in the Driving Urban Transition Partnership, on 3 priorities. The first one is Positive Energy District. The second one is the 15 minutes city challenge. And the third one is circular economy and circular economy mainly through the donut economy. So there are quite a number of projects that have been already selected in Driving Urban Transition, 36 projects involving more than 50 cities that are coming from the mission. And the interest of DUT is that it also has an international dimension. So there are calls that will be launched by DUT, that have been launched in the past and that will be launched very soon again by DUT, which are called MI calls for mission innovation, which are open to international partners. So there again is an opportunity for the international living labs to participate in these initiatives together with their European counterparts to develop solutions that can be brought to the attention of the cities that are participating in mission innovation.
Thank you very much, Philippe. Very interesting news also for our members. And so, Philippe, we are in a very peculiar moment in time, and also we are start talking of the role of the missions in FP10, what is going to happen, and considering also this latest development, the state of the mission, shall we consider still the mission inadequate tool to address climate change, but probably also all the other missions? And how do you see Living Labs as supporting the local and regional dimension of the actions? Easy question.
Of course, very easy. And I could respond by saying on FP10, we can't say anything. We don't know. I mean, what is very clear is that the impacts of climate change are being felt increasingly, and this will continue to increase. Some people forget this. Some people put other priorities on top. If you forget nature, nature calls you back. And it's, it's not a belief, it's what science says. So it's very clear. Now, whether the mission is the right tool or not, I'll be very honest here. I'm really surprised by the attention that this question takes. The mission is it's not a new instrument. We don't have any specific instruments for the mission. We use Horizon Europe, mobilization of other EU funding schemes and national funding schemes. We try to work differently. One could think, okay, the missions are being evaluated. I counted 8 studies have been looking at the missions. It's the subject of a lot of attention by some, and I wonder why. I think it's a good sign. It shows that it's disruptive. It's trying to do things differently. It's innovative. And that's the goal of the mission. So whether we will succeed or not, of course, if you ask, are the 100 cities going to be climate neutral by 2030? Or are the 150 regions and local areas going to be climate resilient by 2030? We know that it will be no. But what we can show through the mission, and thanks to the support of other schemes that are doing similar type of activities and can support actually the mission explicitly, we can show that we found solutions that are workable, economically affordable, and then transformative change is possible. That's the goal of the mission. And we should not look at this with, I would say, an administrative or bureaucratic eye, looking at whether the target was reached per se. On resilience, for instance, how do you measure resilience? How do you measure progress on resilience? This is a research question in itself, and we have some projects reflecting on this, because nobody knows what's the best answer to that. Nevertheless, since in the mission we are spending public money, we are being very careful in making sure that we check the impact of the investment, and we try to, of course, have wise investments, but it's very difficult. So that's why I referred in my previous intervention to the right to fail. We need to really experiment and test different solutions, and I hope that we can demonstrate that by being innovative, trying new things, we can demonstrate that we are probably the only ones that are exploring and broadening the scope of solutions that are being offered to policymakers. But what is sure is that the regional authorities, the local authorities, the member states will have to implement and accelerate change on adaptation to climate change, because we have no choice. Nature is strong.
Thank you very much, Philip. And of course, we are talking about ambitious missions, but also a different way to look at research, not looking at single really projects, but really at portfolios of projects that will help implement the mission. So considering this, Ian, we know that the success of the mission, of course, is not linked to a single project success, but really to the portfolio approach. And as also Evdokimos presented this morning, for us, Living Labs should live across projects. It should not be linked to a very specific project and then die. So as Living Labs are at the heart of the ecosystem, they are blended with the community and they are collecting feedback also beyond the project life cycle. This is really helping to do a long-term measurement on, for example, the quality of life of the patients and the family, not linked directly on a single project. How do you see this evolving also for the cancer mission?
Yeah, thank you for this question, because it makes it possible for me to speak a little bit more about the cancer mission and the fact that it's closely linked to the Europe's Beating Cancer Plan, which is an even bigger initiative on cancer that is managed by our colleagues in DG Santé and to which we contribute on a daily basis. So these are two fully complementary works. I say that because the cancer plan has, apart from lots of policy activities that relate to cancer prevention, also a very strong part on quality of life. Also all kinds of aspects that relate to quality of life of cancer patients and those under treatment and those also post-treatment and those who really we can consider cured and they have survived cancer, and they go on with their private and professional lives, and they want to buy a house, they need a loan, they want to want to be forgotten, as we call the right to be forgotten by financial institutions and insurance companies. So it's important that you bring up the question, because quality of life in the mission, as Philippe also mentioned, so we try to do things differently. So one of the things that we have started doing from actually day one is bringing together everywhere we can. So first in the Commission, Santé and RTD. So to make sure that research and healthcare, in this case cancer care, are going to work side by side. Because that's often not the case, unfortunately. These are completely two different silos. You see that also in scientific meetings. You see that also in hospitals. You can hear it when you talk to scientists or when you talk to patients or clinicians. You hear always the same issues. So that's, I think, indeed important. So when it comes to quality of life, of course, you need to connect quality of life, what happens on the ground, with research. So what we already see is that, so we have two examples. One is EU on Quality of Life, which is an 11 million project that we launched, was actually one of the first projects that we launched end of 2022. I think we couldn't have done it faster. And it's going to look into, in all member states, in what do we still not have when it comes to metrics on quality of life indicators, because there is, fortunately, as we keep more and more cancer patients alive, with increasing successful treatments that are less toxic and more successful in curing the patient, or at least sort of keeping cancer at bay, we need more metrics, we need more indicators that, and we need to help patients when all kinds of issues that, I don't have time to talk about, but they relate to physical and mental issues. So the living lab approach is also used in this project, and another project that is more focused on guidelines for young cancer patient survivors, so childhood, adolescent and young adult cancer survivors, where a living lab approach is used to design with the patients, okay, what are the needs? They go through the co-creation approach to then design. In one case, it's more a sort of digital application approach, which I think, okay, is maybe a solution, but can not be more than part of the solution. Mm-hmm. And in other cases, it's really going to try to change the care for these patients. So that brings me back also to the fact that we have started a dialogue with exactly this young group of cancer survivors, adolescent and young adults, since 2023. We spoke with them on a number of occasions. We listened to their issues. Of course, a lot of the issues are known, but so as a result, we co-created with them two research topics, one in the EU for Health program under the cancer plan, and one in the cancer mission. It was just published, and the deadline is also the 18th of September. Mm-hmm. But I think indeed, as was mentioned, we all have the same timelines, 2030, 2031. But of course, we are not going to reach all that we want to achieve. So it's important indeed that research and care, in the case of the cancer mission and the cancer plan, come together and remain together. So to make sure that happens, or it stands a chance that this will continue in FP10, is also the fact that in the governance of the cancer mission, we have brought together the ministries of research and the ministries of health in a, simply by putting two comitology groups together. So, because as with the cancer mission, we don't want to set up new things. We want to use what exists and just try to make it more efficient. So that's what we did. And at least we hope that this is going to continue. And we already see things are changing. We see that finally more discussions start happening between these ministries, who are often, I don't want to say it, but we know they are often in competition. They don't even know each other. We have seen it in meetings, ministries from the same country, they don't know each other. And so, of course, that is necessary, because otherwise you never can, I think, co-create the solutions for first the patients, but also the people at risk of cancer. And I think it's not difficult to understand that climate change and all that is coming to us, unfortunately, is also affecting the health of people. So that's what we hope, that this way of working, this co-creation way of working, is going to continue. And we certainly will try to do our best to make that happen and to make that continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. And for sure, having the right people at the table, it's helping. So this is also the Living Lab message, to have everyone at the right moment at the table. And Elisabetta, Mission Healthy Oceans has really an ambitious goal. So it's preventing pollution, protecting ecosystem, fostering a sustainable blue economy. So what are the challenges that you face, and how you see collaboration between various stakeholders, including governments, industries, and local communities, be enhanced to overcome the challenges? And how can we, as a Living Lab community, support you?
Indeed, thank you very much, Martina. Indeed, our objectives are very ambitious. At the same time, they are matter of life, I say. They are essential, and we have a very short time to act. So, and as Philippe rightly said, we might not reach all those targets, but the missions are really a different approach. And what the challenge here is, and probably the solution is to work really all together. And we need to work from the, from the EU level, international level. Also in our mission is very international. The national level, we are involving governments, and as Jan was also rightly saying, across departments. Also for us, we work across departments. Some member states are, for example, developing mirroring missions in our case, or interdepartment tables or groups to address the issues of our mission. So we are, for example, participating now at the G7 with an event where some countries will adhere formally to our mission. So we need the national involvement, we need the regional involvement, the regions, very important, to collaborate really and to see what can we do together in the interest of the regions themselves and aligned with the EU objectives. And the local communities. And then the challenge is to bring in a very short time, we need a critical mass effort, a massive effort, to bring the solutions locally, the solutions that they need. In every context it will be different ones, but building from our portfolio of research and innovation and all what we can put at the disposal of existing solutions, bring locally what is needed there. With an approach which is really the Living Lab approach, this needs to be co-decided, co-designed, at the local level, with engagement, full engagement of the citizens. We're not going to, to teach what needs to be done there. They need to be involved themselves and decide, and we need to help these solutions to reach the territories in the way that is needed locally. So we try to help that, but in the end we will only succeed if we all work together and if everybody is engaged at their own level. Really the ball needs to roll. The success will be there when the mission will run by itself in all the local contexts, at least in our case, in all the sea basins, in all the river basins across Europe. But that's why the Living Labs are key. And so how can you help us? You can really help us. Bring all your Living Labs fully involved in our mission. Help us, please help us to make this happen, because you have already built this network. In the case of our mission, maybe we were not necessarily already very much involved, but the principle is there. So we really need you to be there, to bring on the small islands, on the coastal regions, on the rivers, wherever Living Labs you already have, please involve them in the mission so that they can help us to bring the solutions. So we need to help each other. You have a key role, and the regions also have a key role. So this joint effort is key, and the synergies among all existing instruments that we try also to practice at our level, across emissions, across our EU, different programs. We are now doing for the first time portfolio analysis across 16 different EU programs to see how they deliver on our mission objectives. So it's a really new way of working, which is very challenging but very important, and I think key to achieve, or at least try to achieve to some extent, these very ambitious objectives.
Thank you very much, Elisabetta. Thank you, everyone. I just would like the last round, just 1 minute each, the key takeaways of this discussion. It has been fabulous to have so many different services from the Commission at the same table discussing anyway what our community is doing and can do for you. So maybe just to sum up a little bit, and the mic, thank you so much. Just 1 minute each.
Okay, so I mean, I think it became clear from our discussion. So the Living Labs are really a key tool for greater involvement of stakeholders, which we wouldn't necessarily reach otherwise with our competitive calls that we have. This is also an approach which is actually key to accelerate transformation, which is all what the missions are about. What I think each of us has said that in the one or the other way. So this is also, I mean, okay, the mission as an approach is something which is genuinely new, but a living lab approach that is applied as we have seen, which is a challenging approach if it's applied as a genuine living lab approach, is also an innovative approach and a locally innovative approach. This is actually what we need. So then also, I mean, Elisabetta was just saying, yeah, we have to get the citizens involved and so on. So yeah, this is true. So what do they get out of it? I think our message to share, what do you get as a reward? It's not only that we maybe can give a financial compensation for people to participate, but it's exactly access to a network of knowledge, of cutting-edge innovation, the opportunity to be part of a network, to share and exchange and learn. So this is key, and then also that a lot of what we will experiment as living labs, they will later function as lighthouses. So we have experimentation, demonstration, and this is something which is also key, which we can build on in the future.
Thank you.
Maybe 1.5 minutes.
Thank you. Well, I'd just like to recall the numbers that I mentioned in the previous intervention. 76 of the cities that are part of the mission, of the 112 cities that we have in the mission, have a living lab. So I want to see these 76 living lab being involved in the implementation of the mission, in the development of the climate city contracts, in the rolling out of the strategy for climate neutrality. And I think it's very important, and it makes perfect sense, because the way those living labs are designed, the methodological approach that is being used in the living labs is 100% compliant with what we do in the city's mission. And in particular, the co-creation, the citizens' engagement dimension. And I'm very glad to see that Anthony is here from Democratic Society, who will be, I'm sure, speaking about that in the next session. So citizens' engagement is key, and living labs can contribute to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the main message takeaway is I'm really curious to see what those ENoLL living labs can bring to the mission on adaptation to climate change. Please contact the Secretariat of the mission, or the platform implementing the mission is called Me4Adapt. They run a community of practice where we put together the regions and local authorities with those who have something to offer to the mission. It can be from the research side, climate risk assessment, finance, advising, all kind of services. And this community of practice is quite active, and it's, please let us know what you can offer. We will appreciate that very much. And you said that it's fabulous to have all these people from the Commission. I rarely hear that. Normally, it's all people from the Commission on the podium. Please, that's boring. And I hope that next time, actually, we could have on this podium all those, the regional authorities and the local authorities, having implemented solutions, who could testify on how the living lab approach or the approach to the mission help them in finding solutions. This is what we try to do. We held the forum of the mission on adaptation to climate change last week, and it was really nice to see on stage, after the Commissioner Hoekstra, Commissioner for Climate Action, some regions testifying on how research innovation outcomes could be used and practiced in their area to increase resilience, and that's exactly what the mission is about, accelerating transformative change, as we all said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think main takeaway, I think we of course know quite well the living lab concept in health has been around for quite some years. So I think for us, I think the takeaway is that we need to continue, but I also think it would be good maybe to take stock and maybe get in touch with your network, and maybe also organize a workshop or have that organized through the project clusters, because we don't work with single projects anymore. We all put them together in clusters to work together, where they also have a chance to talk about these issues, such as can we design better living labs of community of practices, or can we do other things in a better way that for single projects would maybe be difficult or less efficient to do. So I think that would be, for me, the main takeaway. Let's maybe think of something we can do with ENoLL to take stock of what's happening and listen indeed to what the consortia and the people who are working in these communities have to say, because I think it looks very interesting, but for us it's still early days. So to really say yes, it's been successful, or thank you.
Thank you.
And I think also in our case, it's clear that the living labs are key for our mission, ours. And we really look forward to getting your involvement and engagement and make this mission happen and become a reality in all the local contexts where you are operating. So we are looking forward to further collaborate with you and of course with the regions as well.
Thank you very much. So we will wait you for round 2 at the end of Horizon Europe. We can see where we are maybe in a couple of years. And in between, we will be happy to organize a different reflection. Thank you very much, and thank you.
Uno. Check, sí.
Με δείξει γυρνάω. Shall I start? Or?
No, not that much. Like, give me the back to Eto. I can give the back to Eto. So to keep one here.
Check.
We start in.
But then you move it to take it away. So you switch it off. Okay, then you leave the chair as they were before. And it's just for 2 seconds that we get completely blind. And then I have my sunglasses. So it shows the white hair more. It's, you wanted to highlight my white hair.
If you want another microphone, I can put an extra here.
If you can, yes. So we can move it on the side and we can have 2 here and 2 there. Without killing myself.
Process rebellion.
So can I consider? No. Can I disappear? Just stay here, please. Can I run away? Okay. But maybe here? No, there it's easier and then...
I can move it. Let me check if it works.
How are you doing?
Check.
Perfect. So maybe people can move this, like.
Sí. Bueno, no se puede recortarlo así.
Maybe we can put it over there and...
Check. But you have to talk like really close.
No, then it's...
No, then we have that one.
Then we go back.
I can sit here, so I'm the one getting blind, and I pass the mic there.
Once they confirm the guy who's connected remotely is done, we can reprogram the second one.
But the guy is
After.
the session after.
So I can give you that microphone now, and then we can put it again on the web.
But then the microphone can go to those 2-3 people, and I'm covering.
Check,
I'm sorry,
check, check.
Anthony, I'm covering you. I need to. I don't want to hide your face. I'm sorry. It was impossible to find the pictures online yesterday. But no, the worst was another colleague that I had to screenshot the videos to find them.
Oh wow, that is quite hard.
Which is pretty hard to find a nice smiling face when you're talking.
Okay, Juliet, just one last thing. If you sit here, do you get the light? Yes. So then it's gonna, the idea is that you don't get that light, but by having this a little bit farther, you only get the light up here. Like, which one looks
I would turn it off, honestly. But we can show the. But you show
it
all
at the
sit
beginning,
here.
they're
If we all sit here,
Yes,
that one. So I try all the chairs. So this one is not a problem. This one is not a problem. You get it. You get it. Well, I get it here. It's he has a problem. So probably you need to. You're the fourth one, so you should go.
I think it's also like I'm making 5 centimeters taller.
There it is.
I mean,
Not that much. Not that much.
it's that chair.
That chair. So we need to move this one a bit more here and those three a bit more. No, those ones are fine. It's this two.
this is alright if I lean back.
But then we need to switch off.
Yeah, I would switch it off.
It's just a few moments.
It doesn't make sense anyway.
So in any
I
case,
could have had a cigarette by the time we were doing all this.
so in any case, that's what we're gonna have. We're gonna keep the chairs like this, and still we're gonna turn that off after we start.
Yes.
Okay? So at least.
But that's what I was thinking. Can we put the tables down anyway?
Yes.
Thank you. And then we all get closer.
And then closer.
Anyway, nobody drinks
Exactly.
here. And then we can keep it up.
Much better like this, yes.
Ma no, toccami ora, porca. No, però. E quindi può stare? Sì.
Se non vuoi entrare.
Check, check, check. Check, check, check.
Can I ask you to talk for
Sure. Yep. Level check, level check. 1 2 1 2 level check, checking levels. 1 2 1 2 1 2. One two, level check. 1 2 checking levels. 1 2 1 2 checking levels. Checking levels. 1 2 1 2.
You are an expert.
yeah, it's a much less radio. And with the coffee, that's it.
Son estas las que... ¿Cómo?
Ah, sí. No sé si será muy oscuro. Esta la puedes dejar.
Ya, es que estos dos van juntas, mira.
Vale, esta está bien. No, eso apágala. Deja esta. Ya está. Así.
Esto no sé.
Es muy oscuro, lo que hay que hacer es bajar el brillo. No se ve, dice. Claro, pues que encender ahora. Creo que sí, porque se ve muy oscuro. Esta luz la de las dos. A ver, pues avanzamos un panel. Llega. Estamos ahí. Estamos ahí. Ah, mira, déjalo así. El problema es que esta luz...
Así.
¿Se fueron todas? No, solo se ha ido esta, ¿no?
No, estas también.
¿Se han ido también?
Sí. No. Puedes cortar eso.
Sky level or whatever, let's discussion about it. And yeah, so we have 3 working. Thank you very much.
Ahora hay que salir del menú, ¿no? ¿Dónde está?
Tengo yo.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hay que decirle a él que mande eso para allá.
Ciao Riccardo, mi senti?
Sì, sento bene.
Ah, perfetto, no, solamente per vedere se funziona.
Sì, funziona tutto, direi io.
Hai l'indirizzo di YouTube per seguire la discussione?
Sì, purtroppo l'audio non è sincronizzato, però non c'è problema.
Lo so. Quando ti danno le parole, magari prova a
quando diranno la parola prova a togliere l'audio del YouTube, così senti solo l'audio del YouTube. Grazie. Grazie.
Hello, it is time to reconvene, so please take your seats. We are going to start with the next session in 30 seconds, hopefully. Wishful thinking. So maybe I kindly ask the moderator of the next session to join me. And also, Pablo Cabanelas. Okay, please go ahead. Go ahead. I didn't.
Okay. Now we have the luck to have the projects that work for the missions in the missions and they involve living labs. So I would like now to invite Giulia Campodonico, Head of Projects of ENoLL and Project Coordinator of Solid Startups, Pablo Cabanelas, Project Coordinator of Fair Climate, Fedra Francocci from CNR, Project Coordinator of the Blue Mission Med, Anthony Zacharzewski, President of Democratic Society in Brussels, and also Marius Gianda, President of ENoMed and Project Coordinator of the project. Thank you for being here with us today. We have one question that is composed of many different parts. In general, we need to understand what is the impact. What is the impact of using the living labs? What is the value of using the living labs in your projects in order to achieve the objectives of your project and going further to the mission? So I will address the following question to you, and you have 6 minutes. So we would like to know how living labs contributed to the project under the mission, and if you could share specific examples of how these environments have made tangible impact and led to successful outcomes, and lessons that have you learned from integrating living labs that could be applied for future initiatives to enhance their effectiveness and impact. I will start with Giulia.
Thank you, Dokimos. So I have to admit that the project that I have the honor to coordinate is a bit of a different nature. So we are not developing living labs, so we cannot talk yet of the impacts of living labs, but we exist specifically to support the development and the creation and the scale up of the 100 soil health living labs and lighthouses that are expected to be created under the mission. So in particular, what we want to achieve with Soil Startup is to support from the early conception to the later stage and the scale up, the development, and of these living labs, having in mind since the early stages their sustainability. And we do that not alone, but in a portfolio. We saw it before in the different presentations that the missions work not as a project alone, but as a portfolio of projects. And here we see the preparation that has been developed and that Kerstin before was referring to as 3 different main projects that prepared the path for the living labs, from prep soil that initiated the mapping and the taxonomy of what really living labs in soil health are going to be, and the business model, some tools to support their sustainability. Then we have the Nations project that ENoLL is also contributing to, that is helping the first waves of applicants, but this will also be followed by the soil framework partnership that will run until 2030 to continue this support for the living labs, aiming for, on one side, the correct approach of the living labs, and here as ENoLL we will also benefit of the experience of our living labs and our members that have been implementing this method since 2006, and also aiming for the sustainability. So, for example, in your introduction of documents, you were mentioning that EU funding is a really great tool for the living labs, but this is a starting point. So the funding of the mission for the living labs is the starting point, but we need to consider that the 100 soil health living labs needs to be sustainable in the long term to achieve the goals by 2030 and 2050 that are way beyond the funding itself. So this mindset needs to be considered since the early days of the conception. And this is what we are doing in the different preparatory phases that, as was mentioned before, in the mission soil was a bit intense in the first 2 years, but now is really helping and will be continued in raising awareness. On one side, raising awareness of the actors and what they can play, from the farmers to the citizens to the landowners, to be actor in the change and really empowering them to innovate in line with the ENoLL vision, but also all the other actors that can contribute and collaborate with them. So this is really in line, in collaboration across many initiatives. So, for example, the panel before, they were mentioning that the missions are different tools, but all these different tools have ambitious goals that are somewhat interlinked, and that's what soil will help the living labs, so that we will help the 100 soil health living labs and lighthouses to develop their local network, but also to look at future collaborations beyond their own, the mission soil itself. For example, we were mentioning the agroecology partnership that we will see better this afternoon, but also other missions. We see clear connection also with the cities mission, for example. The topic of this year for living labs is specifically on urban soil health, but also on water and the health impact. So this is really important, and that's fundamental to consider the harmonized approach. So while the soil health living labs will have a specific methodology and specific targets for soil health, we need to consider that they are part of the wider and global movement of living labs that is happening, so that we can favorize and support the long-term collaboration with the international network.
Thanks, Julia. So it seems that living labs should be among the exploitable results for sure, and that the actual work or the impact of the living lab starts at the end of the project, and this is where you go towards 2030 in order to create all the impact. So the project support the living lab to be created in the right way, and then to move on. Thanks. Pablo?
Yes, good morning. And first, thank you for inviting me as representative of For Climate Project. And we started some months ago, And the title is quite descriptive of our objective, is moving forward to achieve climate resilience and sustainable regional economic systems. So we are about adaptation to the climate change, thinking that there are some issues that are not going to come back. And we should be able to understand what has changed and how it affects to traditional business models, but also to potential business models. And we are focusing especially on three main sectors. One is forestry, another is agriculture, and the other is fishery. In this project, we try to make a series of living labs. We initially called them case studies, but we will apply the living lab methodology. 20 living labs throughout different regions in Europe to test how they should adapt to the new circumstances that have offered us the climate change. Of course, the climate change has a series of threats, but also we can face some opportunities to adapt and to develop new business models. And we are in that way, we are trying to co-create within the local community following the quadruple helix that was explained before, including of course, the academia, and representing the academia, but also the civil society, the public administration, and private enterprises or interests. And together we should look for new ways of doing what we have done until now. For example, I am coming from a city called Vigo. Vigo is in Ria. Ria is a kind of bay with a very specific ecosystem. And people working in the fisheries are experiencing a change in the temperature of the water. And it affects to the seafood. We should work with them, with the NGOs, with local representatives from the public administration, also with the people who is working in the fisheries area, to develop and innovate in the co-creation of solutions. And here is where we are going to use the living labs to include an holistic approach to deploy potential solutions, mainly nature-based solutions. One of our partners is IUCN, that is a well-known organization, and they are also working on nature-based solutions to co-create potential issues, or potential innovations that can let us adapt and continue our way of living like it was, but with a slight change. And we will try to empower the citizens, the civil society, through training activities, to let them know what is changing, how it's affecting their life, and from their point of view, how it is affecting them, to develop new ways of approaching the traditional forestry, the traditional fishing, or the traditional agriculture. And we are sure that it will help us to transform and to adapt, and also to provide new experiences to scale up these potential solutions to other regions with maybe similar conditions that are facing a quite close reality. And this is where we are trying to provide our contribution, and throughout Europe, with case studies from Portugal, Spain, France, Albania, and Poland, etc. And this is the way, and the living labs will be a very important methodology in the development of our project. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks. And it's, as you said, a challenge to measure change and also to monitor change, and especially when you try to change people's lives, which from the time of action to the time of impact takes some time, which could go beyond the project. So Living Labs, I think it's... Thanks. Fedra?
Thank you. Well, Fishery Living Lab, I think we can start with collaboration. Yes, I'm here representing the coordination and support action for the development and the implementation of the mission Ocean and Waters in the Mediterranean. So maybe we can adjust the geographical level, but we are there. So as Elisabetta Balzi said, the Mission Ocean and Waters started with the lighthouse area, and we are focusing our activities in the Mediterranean by creating a narrative supporting this implementation of action led by the community of actors to concretely implement and make a step forward in achieving the mission objective. More specifically, the Mediterranean is focusing on pollution, so minimization of the effect, restoration, but also prevention mainly. So these activities are linked to some keywords that my colleagues from the other mission already said, so the business models and tools. So I think that we are all using really the same approach in developing a path that starts from the identification of those innovation tools that are needed from the communities to be empowered and active in implement concrete solutions, but also in creating awareness at the community level and then making the connection and try to align also at the policy level those factors that would enable the concrete deployment of solution. Just to give you some example of the activities that we made at the Mediterranean, we are, as a consortium, a multi-stakeholder group of partners, because we come from the academic, as you're saying, but also there are association, also environmental and activism in the consortium. So we really dialogue at the multi-level. And the narrative that we create at the Mediterranean is also deployed at the local level by the deployment of national regional hubs in each of the 7 countries represented by the consortium, and not only European. So we also have 2 non-European countries in the consortium. And these hubs really, facilitating also the translation, just allow me, the language is very important when you are active at the local level. So these hubs really transfer the knowledge that we are setting up at the Mediterranean level, because you said before that the living labs are also, they also need to develop their own strategy and methodology. So we are trying to make an overall methodology of the contents and the approach that from inspiring and mobilizing, we have to demonstrate and apply, and then connect and empower all the stakeholders. So this is the process that we use to set the methodology. And then we test it at the national regional level. In Italy, of course, I'm from Roma, and we have started last year with the awareness activities about the mission, but the work that we have done, it's far with respect to the starting of the mission project. We empowered, for example, so in the awareness process, we found that it's good to speak to a broad and sectorial audience. So as also Elisabetta said before, the stakeholders of the Mission Ocean and Waters are diverse. Of course, cities are into that, but also all the agricultural sectors, and of course the coastal cities and and the climate-related stakeholders. So for increased awareness and to learn from priorities, we reached a broad audience. But at the moment in which we had to test and validate with the stakeholders the prioritization of action, we really needed to go local. With respect to this, for example, in Greece, next month we will have the meeting in Thessaloniki. I forgot to tell you. And this will be run by our Greek partners and focusing on fisheries, of course. And in Rome, in Italy, it's running in parallel mutual learning activities in Venice on prevention of plastic pollution, marine litter, and circular economy. Last week, we had a focus group on rivers, and we really took advantage of the of the previous work that we had at CNR, so my institution, because we are part, just closing, we are part of the river contracts, just saying that there is some concrete instrument that can help citizens in transform the research results and support action into recommendation recognized by the policymakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Fedra. It was really nice to see that projects that use the same methodology, the Living Labs, they find similarities and same approach. With this, the benefit of this or the value of this is regardless of the effectiveness of the approach, good or bad or the best or not the best, for the citizens it's an effort from the research community, similar effort. They don't see projects, so they see an effort towards a better world, let's say, which is really nice. And this is the harmonization, the approach among the projects really gives a nice image to the citizens. Thanks. Anthony?
Thanks very much. So the Net Zero Cities platform is what's available to cities who are part of the city's mission. So you may know this already, but I'm going to say for those in the room who don't. If you are one of the 112 mission cities, you can get support from a team of expert city advisors who you'll build a close relationship with, and also a team of experts and specialists across all of the disciplines, or at least most of the disciplines, that you will need to involve to ensure that you can write a good climate city contract, which is kind of your action plan, get good investment opportunities through the investment plan that you do alongside, and then start doing the work to get your city towards net zero. So that's the big picture. And I say big because there's 35 partners in the consortium, there's 112 cities, each city is its own complex ecosystem, it's big all around. One of the important things for us in the context of Living Labs was to be able to create the understanding in cities that hadn't worked with Living Labs before about what they could do with them. So one of the first things we did was to design a Living Lab as a service, basically to say, here's how we can help you set one up, here's what they look like, here's what you get from them, and that's available to all cities online right now as part of the Net Zero Cities information database. In fact, it's available to everyone because it's on an open website for netzerocities.eu. So that was the starting point. But one of the things that we found out really early in our conversations with cities is that a lot of them already knew what Living Labs were, and even if they didn't, they were doing things that were pretty adaptable to that context. So in Limassol, for example, in Cyprus, Limassos, you have a cooling plan, which is being designed as a Living Lab. So they're trying to understand options for urban cooling, for making buildings more naturally cooled, for making streets and squares more cool, but they're setting it up in a Living Lab framework. Similarly, Net Zero Cities provides pilot funding, not automatically to every city, there's an application process, but the expectation is that over the course of the program, every city will have a pilot, and that's on a particular area of interest. So in Slovenia, 3 Slovenian cities, Ljubljana, Kranj, and I now can't remember the third, are working together again with a Living Lab model, working on issues around mobility, but also around urban energy. But one of the most important things that we've learned is that the things that cities need most help with are also the things that we can use Living Labs for effectively. So one of the great benefits of looking across so many cities, even though it's sometimes very hard, is you do see all of the different things that cities want, and you can compare and you can contrast. And the two things that cities always ask for support on are finance, not surprising perhaps, everyone needs money, but also citizen engagement, which was a bit more of a surprise even as someone who runs an organisation that has been focusing on citizen engagement for 18 years. So the important part there was to understand how can you bring people along in this conversation, and not just by doing a citizens' assembly on climate, which is not a bad thing to do in itself, but which is just a one-off. And when you're talking about a 10, 20, 30-year plan, somebody saying in 2035, well, yeah, but a group of people in 2022 said this was a good idea, isn't really going to work. So how do you bring people in for the long term? How do you demonstrate that their involvement has benefits? And how do you make sure that they can feel and see that they are being involved and that their choices and that they're making are being involved in the decisions that the city is taking? And so that kind of living lab approach, which is so rooted in both doing and working with citizens and working with other stakeholders, is really important as part of our approach. And one of the things that we have seen is that things that may not look particularly living lab-ish from someone, from your perspective, or even from the city's perspective, do have a lot of similar characteristics. They have the characteristic of involvement, they have a characteristic of having an approach that they want to experiment with and trying to do relatively, it's always difficult with social interventions, but trying to do relatively scientific type work with those. But the other really important thing that we learned, and the lesson perhaps that's the most important I would give, is that a lot of the time when people think about the word lab, apart from the sort of the white coats, they think about it as something where you go into a room and then everything is like laid out on the table and you start the thing, and then the thing happens and you finish the thing. So it's like a game of cards. The table is empty, you deal the cards, you play the cards, and at the end of the game you put the cards away. Nothing in climate change or social intervention is like that. Nothing. It's much more like being substituted onto a game of football at 60 minutes. An enormous amount of stuff has already happened. An enormous number of other players are on the pitch. All sorts of things are going on, and you have to work out what's the best way to get you through to the end of the game to get the result you want. And that's where the living lab approach and the involvement that it brings has been really useful in our thinking and will continue to be really useful as cities move from the planning phase into the action phase over the next 3 to 5 years. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. Interesting to see that there are cities that have been working as living labs, but they didn't know that they could be called living labs. And this is not only for the cities, but in general, there are research organizations that have been working as living labs, but they didn't know. Or unfortunately the other way around, organizations that are called living labs because they have done a specific action that they gathered some people in order to go for the funding. But this is really important for the projects to increase awareness of the living labs, so those that work as living labs but they didn't know, they understand, so they get into the game in order to develop further. Thanks. And Marius?
Hello everybody, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. So I'm the coordinator of the 4PCAN project. Our project is focusing on cancer primary prevention. We are a big consortium, 17 partners from 11 countries. And one of the key partners is the International Agency for Research of Cancer, part of WHO. And every 10-15 years, hundreds of experts in cancer field are coming together for years to build the European Code Against Cancer. And they actually put together evidence, they analyze this, and at the end of this very complicated process is one pager with 12 recommendations: do not smoke, quit smoking, do not drink so much alcohol, and so on and so forth. So you know very well. The usual way the code is implementing in primary health is the following. It's the WHO who engage with the national authorities, the governments, then the governments are going at the regional level, in our case Public Health Directorate, and the family doctors, so 5 stakeholders. And we expect, usually it's a roundtable with the government representatives and a campaign like for 1 month and a lot of flyers on the walls of the GPs. And we expect actually the people to be adherent, right, to the 12 recommendations. So this was actually the thinking behind our project. And we said, why not to go in a bottom-up approach to complement this top-down and to build a new model based on behavioral and social factors that influence like 60% of our health, but as well to include the environmental factors, so important, but of course taking into consideration the health system related factors and biological factors. And in our project, we are actually set up 2 living labs, one in Bulgaria and the other one in Romania. And I refer to the Romanian living lab. We started activities 1 year ago. And according to the grant agreement, we should implement this in a county in Romania. And we choose one county in the center of the country. The population is half of the population of the Brussels. So you can imagine really big. And it's so heterogeneous in terms of, because we have big cities, but smaller villages. And we decided to start with a small village, like 5,000 people, somewhere in the north. And we said, oh, let's start from there, because this might be relevant for a lot of people living in Europe, in rural areas, underserved from this perspective of access to health and care and prevention and health promotion. And it was such an experience. We did, using NetMap methodology, an extensive stakeholders mapping. And I mentioned that the traditional way includes 5 stakeholders. We identify around 140 relevant stakeholders for the topic: European, national, regional, and local. Then we use advanced social sciences, network and social network analysis and personal network analysis to understand the environment. And one of the findings was that people are actually really anxious when you simply pronounce the word cancer. So this was a really important finding, because we then built 2 citizen town halls activities with the citizens, and it was a challenge because it was about the European Code Against Cancer, but how to do it without pronouncing cancer. And we call it, let's discuss about the Code for Life. And at the first meeting, to your point, I went in front of around 110 people in this village, and I said, you know, we are representing a research and innovation project. So, and we are implementing a living lab. And you might expect to come with big machines, with things like that, with a white coat. And I said, no, we are not doing this, because the lab is your community. And if you are interested, if you become activated and contribute to our project, this will be our success, our community, not just for us as a project. And it was so great. At the end of this first town hall, I asked people who wants to volunteer to become member of the citizen jury. And were like 12 hands up. And I said, but you didn't ask me what is a citizen jury. And they said, it's not so important, because we want to be part of this movement. And then we actually now building the 3rd iteration. They choose sedentarism, diet, and obesity as key topics. We are now building this iteration around these risk factors. And I didn't mention that a lot of people are elderly people in the community, and I discussed with them about sedentarism. And I asked them, do you know what is the cheapest medicine in the world? And I said, it's the physical activity. And they asked me, you know, but I'm a cardiac, I have, you know, cardiovascular disease, I have so comorbidities. How can I become more active? And we'll provide them the answer in 3 weeks when we will organize the first championship of walking football. So this is for people with this kind of comorbidities, playing football, having fun without necessarily running, but walking. So this is really nice, and this is the type of intervention that we are actually considering. And this part of the personalized communication model we are trying to implement in the Living Lab. So I will stop here, but of course I have many other things to share already.
When they see real interest, actually they want to be part of the movement, because they see the real interest. And I like that the Living Labs is always ready to adapt. So you change the name of the project, you change the type, in order to make sure that they see the real actions and not a project, which is nice. Thank you all. Now we go for a round of a brief closing statement. We would like to know the key takeaways from today's conversation, but also any call for action for future directions you see for utilizing Living Labs to foster further impact from projects.
Thank you. So I mentioned before the long-term sustainability, but also harmonization is the fundamental takeaway to consider. And so thinking at the long term, but also working together, being able to work in an aligned way, regardless if we're working on soil, on healthcare, on climate, we need to be aligned. And this is the only way to ensure that the terminology of living labs is not misused and diminished. So, and it's really necessary for the wider community that we see all the different projects and the missions and beyond are building to, and it's necessary to build trust. So for the actors to really be at the core of the innovation and being present for the innovation, and this is why it's necessary to have an harmonized approach and go beyond the specific project. And I'm really glad to see that the Mission Soil is the first mission to really embrace this complete approach of long-term sustainability, harmonized approach that of course ENoLL and its members represent. And this is something that we will bring on with Soil, having the experience of Living Labs certified ENoLL members certified driving the first steps, but then ensuring that the funded Living Labs will continue to expand and contribute also to the other missions for cities or climate or beyond to drive this harmonized approach.
Thanks, Julia.
Well, we are trying to provide or help to develop transformative solutions. For these transformative solutions, there require multiple perspectives because the problems and the challenges has multiple realities. And this is a way we are trying to work, and the Living Labs can let us to provide this holistic approach to deploy in the near future tools, recommendations, potential strategies to develop in different regions. One of the main challenges we have now in the project is the engagement of the community and provide them real and tangible benefits to engage in the Living Labs. And here is where we are working hard on that with this perspective from private industry also in the consortium, but also academia, and we'll try to involve public bodies. And this is the way we are following to reach all this region. Thank you.
Thank you, Pablo. Fedra?
Yes, if I may, I will take maybe highlighting the importance of the multiple approach in providing support, as you were saying, and it's really important to provide solution in all forms, technological, social, business, and governance, and provide this portfolio to the community of the Living Lab, of course, and empower them in implementing according to their own starting point. For example, in Rome, we worked with the students by developing a 2 years project of citizen science that brought to a broader engagement. And then on the same community of actors, we evolved by bringing innovators to implement solutions for the river system management more at technological level, also bringing experience from other countries. And the philanthropists were interested in funding. So we are also building connection and bringing new partnership. So the community of the Living Lab is evolving.
So my call to action is please check the Net Zero Cities website, because there's almost certainly a Net Zero Cities city near you. And what I'm taking away is there are so many great examples of Living Lab work going on. We would really like to connect the work that cities are doing on climate with some of the work they might be doing in your area. So please take a look when you're doing work, particularly if it's locally based, as to whether there's an opportunity to connect up with that, with the climate agenda and the cities agenda, because as you know, the climate agenda touches everything, and we are really keen to maximise the cross benefits from different sorts of working, and to also make sure that we aren't repeating ourselves or creating two sets of infrastructure for the same thing. So in Net Zero Cities, you have a not as well funded as it could be, but relatively well funded network of supporters and specialists. We can help connect your work into the work that cities are doing for mutual benefit.
Thank you.
So I think that the best thing with the living labs in health is that you never know what will come next, and this is more and more important because health is so strict, is so rigid in terms of regulations and rules and things like that. So you should have a lot of courage actually to come with a living lab approach in the field of health and cancer. But this is a big opportunity actually to change a bit the game, and especially in prevention. And you know, people. The community is activating, the people are activated by your activities, and it's so important to keep them active and keep them engaged and somehow to extract the insights from them and to understand their needs. And it's clear that they have different needs. And this is an important part of our project, to try to help individual people with different health relations issues that they cannot find the solution because they do not have access to health. Then, and this is part of our activities on the policy side, we are actually educating local authorities how to come in this area of health, of prevention and cancer. And at the regional level, actually, we are trying to influence the smart specialization strategy and all these policy documents. And I will end up by highlighting how important it is to have this cluster of cancer mission projects. We are part of the cluster on prevention and early detection. We'll have our first meeting in September this year, and I'm very much looking forward to understand more from the other projects, how they implement Living Lab, and this is useful, for the projects and for the cancer mission overall.
Thank you. I would like to thank you all for your feedback and for your insightful, actually, feedback, and for sharing this experience and for seeing it as an opportunity to start looking for opportunities working together. Thank you.
Hello from my side too. May I kindly ask Mr. Arthur Serra, he is already here, Arthur. We're starting the roundtable on lessons learned from Living Lab initiatives. We have heard about the process and what they can contribute. May I ask Mr. Serra, it's already Mr. Panagiotis Bamidis, Joaquin Garatea, Ricardo Saraco. Corina Varga unfortunately cannot make it with us today. But we have 4 speakers. I'm missing one. No? Ricardo? He's going to be online. Sorry. But I cannot hear him. Okay, very good. Very good. So thank you for joining also this panel. Thank you for joining this session. Actually, we heard a lot in the previous session, and that was really impressive what the projects are doing, and what the projects are doing, what the Living Labs in the context of projects are doing. They're creating solutions. They put the ecosystems together. They can share knowledge. They can share infrastructure, and then they can co-create the future. And also we have seen the previous one, the morning session, where we heard about Mission Impossibles. Okay, so a lot of cost, a lot of things to be done by the different missions. And I can add, being responsive for the action plan of climate neutrality of the city of Thessaloniki, it has been labeled lately. That is not the private sector that is expected to get a lot of part of the payment, but it's also the citizens. especially in the energy sector, where we need to change our house infrastructure in order to achieve the very ambitious objectives. So sometimes we're speaking about the living labs in projects, but being a living lab and being there together for a long time is something different. And these structures of living labs are those that they can really empower the local ecosystems to make this transition. All the mission representatives, they spoke about transition, but what we are lacking is the way of achieving transition. So let's see this specific focus for this panel. I would like to start with one question for all of you. So from your work within EU missions and your living labs, how they can contribute to that. So how the living labs empower the ecosystems in order to achieve the mission perspectives and objectives, and what strategies, practices have you found most effective that we can take with us and apply. So probably I can start with Mr. Bamidis first.
I think this is functioning already. Thank you, Georgia. Thank you for the kind invitation. Okay, when it comes to the what could the living labs offer to the different missions, I can specifically refer to the problems with cancer, because our living lab is basically health related. It was originated in the healthy aging domain, but then later on we sort of gave it a broader perspective on well-being in general, but health and well-being is the main focus basically. So we had the luxury, in fact, of having a project in our hands, an Horizon 2020 project, in which we wanted technology to be applied for cancer patients, cancer survivors in specific, of older ages, older adults, where technology is going to be used, and there is already a challenge right from the beginning. How do you match technology and the older adults, basically? And given the experiences we had with the living labs approach and the work that we have been doing in several other perspectives, we thought that we might actually exploit what we have been using before in this domain. And if I can just share a few experiences, the design that we initially thought and we were discussing in the partnership was completely changed because of the involvement of the stakeholders. If we can name them, they are also the patients, but they are also the clinicians that were going to use the different technologies. So with co-creating with them, discussing with them, co-designing with them, basically, we have a slide specifically where that this is what we aimed and this is what we used. They are two completely different things, although, you know, they are aiming the same thing, but so that's one point to consider. The second point is that it was going to be done in a difficult time of the pandemic, where the approach to patients, specifically bringing them together in the same space, was a little bit difficult to happen. Was a little bit difficult to, you know, co-designing and co-creation was a difficult issue. It was a completely impossible task to physically occur in those days. So we had a lot of difficulties to try to, you know, basically get over these hassles. But nevertheless, slowly but surely, we had a number of delays. We managed to bring them together, and you know, the participation in the clinical trials that we had, I think, was powered by the Living Labs approach, because people thought that they were engaged from the beginning. That's one point. The second is that they build the trust. I think you mentioned in your presentation earlier about the cancer mission, that if they feel that there is a trust, they can then get into this business. And that was, in fact, one of the best outcomes of all this, that we had to make sure the Living Lab approach, you know, considers this you know, notion of trust. And it is inherent there, but it has to be emphasized in the whole approach, I think. Then I think we managed to involve them at the end as well, to go design, for example, publications and publicity, which is a new thing to do. And we are still doing this, of course, although the project is finished a few weeks ago. We think there is a value in there. There is also some other aspects of this that we thought that they're going to be very important. It gave us the notion of why don't we build a new kind of thing. We dropped the coin of oncology-focused living labs a few years ago in a similar kind of event with ENoLL. It was online then, but anyhow, we tried to cultivate this, and we now have a little project in which we are trying to put this down and create, perhaps in the next few months, the first living lab of patients and early stage researchers and professionals. So, but I can say more in the next round, perhaps.
Very good, thank you. So it's typically an example that has been driven by a project, but then because the ecosystem was ready and the ecosystem was collaborating, used the existence of this collaboration in order to grow up. And also very important it's the trust. Sometimes we speak about data, about technologies, but then we never think about the role of actors. Somebody there needs to play the neutral partner in order everybody to join in the effort. And at the end, you also mentioned to us that in fact it was useful. Also because of the pandemic, it was an opportunity there, and the outcome of the Living Lab was useful for everybody. So everybody joined forces for that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Panagiotis. Joaquin, let's take your view.
Thank you. When preparing this, the presentation that finally it was not done.
Very interesting. I read it. I read it all, and I will come back during the lunch.
I tried to make some research about the mission concept, because the mission of the European Union or Commission, and I went to the Oxford Dictionary, says that the mission is an important assignment given to a person or group of people. I think that this is the mission of the European Commission. But secondly, there is a second interesting one, that is, mission is the vocation or calling of a religious organization to go out into the world and spread its faith. This is the Living Labs. This is the Living Lab. And I wanted to mention also interesting in the concept of the Spanish. Maybe let's say the older people that is here remember a very interesting film that was called The Mission, La Misión. And it is about proselytism, because there were the missions that the Jesuits used to implement in Latin America in order to convert let's say, the Aborigines or the Guaranis at that moment, but also to fight against slave traders in order just to make the things better. The way that these, let's say, Jesuits try to engage or to proselytize, they use music, they use different tools that we are using right now also in the Living Labs. The ones that you remember, the Father Gabriel, that was Jeremy Irons, use an oboe to communicate with them, trying to make them engage. We are using also this kind of cultural approach through the working group of the Living Labs. We are using other tools for engagement, for making the research, using this kind of quintuple helix. And I think that also because also these Jesuits and also these Living Labs were on a mission that is maybe more than the research and the topics that we were talking. I think that mission is related to European values, in order just to fight the challenges that not only Europe but also worldwide we are facing. And that is why it is important. Let's say climate change, urban planning, health, the topics that we are challenging these European missions are very much related to values. What kind of mission do we want to accomplish? That was the other mission, the infrastructures, the tools that in other tables they were mentioning. The Living Labs, we have this mission, more than proselytes that was 500 years ago, to engage, and we are using different research and the quintuple helix and the co-creation, the co-design, in the same way that some others were doing 500 years ago, which at that time was also very difficult. Now it is also difficult. But the good thing, in my opinion, is another point that we didn't mention. We need to internationalize, because the problems that we are challenging in these missions are not alone in Europe. I think that every continent is suffering, and we can take advantage also of the ENoLL international network to work with the other cities, because the problems that is happening in Bangalore, and we are trying to help them in their mission with our small missions, it is something that we need to do. So we are working in the same way that has been commented in different projects, natural-based solutions, because we have a living lab in a region that is suffering climate change a lot, because we have marshes and the sea is coming where it was 500 years ago because of the climate change. So natural-based solutions is much more than, as we were saying, trying to solve through natural materials. It's a kind of philosophy involving administration, universities, our elites that we were commenting. But also more important, the next step. Yesterday I was in a very interesting webinar organized by a European project called Resist, and they were talking about business of the natural-based solution. It's another level, monetization. And this is something that through the tools of the Living Labs, we are working on this, and we will work together with other projects. So this is as a summary. I think that we are a mission of the mission, and we are engaged with people. We are proselytists, and we are one of the best tools that, in my opinion, the European missions have for the European values, that this is what we are talking about, much more than research.
Very good, yeah. And I would like to point out this, that it's not only research. Actually, the mission is solving the problem, and the problem is very complex, and the solutions can only come from the research. This is why the Living Lab goes through the Qatar Helpix and this approach. And at the end, I think what the European Union made is that, because the problem is very complex, now we have pillars of missions, and we want these missions to be, in a way, interact. So we are speaking here about systemic changes, and I would like very much what you mentioned about internalization, because at the end, we need to answer one question. Do we have local solutions that we want to gear up as an innovative to everybody to follow, or we're going to create global solutions that everybody will come in at the local level, and then one size fits all? Actually, it will never fit my size. So thank you. Then Riccardo, I think I will call Riccardo now from the Torino City Lab. Apologies, I didn't mention about Joachim. He is coordinator of OSI and Living Lab, and of course Professor Bamidis is director of the Lab of Medical Physics and Digital Innovation. So Riccardo, can we have your statement for the first question?
Can you hear me properly now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. I'm glad because the Turing case has already been mentioned before, so I'm going to share a brief overview about our long-lasting Living Lab experience, and above all, how the lab is strongly committed to support the EU mission. Turing City Lab is the Council trademark that includes the integrated evolution of our approach and experience with the Living Lab methodology. For years, we have been using Living Lab as a tool to foster alliance, partnership, and create opportunity and space dedicated to innovation, where citizens, business, public administration jointly develop and experiment with innovative products and services. In real life context, in real life context. The current platform is a coordinated system, Turing City Lab is a coordinated system of action to transform the city in an open air, always open innovation laboratory. Thanks to a series of driving initiatives and a broad and proactive partnership. In this way, the whole city becomes a field, a testing field for the city in our priority areas, like, for example, 5G, autonomous vehicles, drones, and so on. And our assets and knowledge are made available to facilitate testing and also disruptive innovative actions. And during these years, these initiatives allow us to build a community and a network of partners, like it was said before, a trustful environment of partners and stakeholders, from the European Space Agency to large companies like Cisco, university research centers, and local startups. This ecosystem has been involved in the creation, in the proposal phase, but also in the creation of the Climate City Contract and under the EU mission on climate neutral and smart cities. It will be continuing, committed again to achieve these challenging goals. As anticipated, Turin, together with the other 9 Italian cities, has been selected to become a neutral city and smart city by 2030. This is definitely a big challenge for us that deserve, and we need the support of the whole entire city ecosystem, starting from our administration. In terms of governance, the city has structured the process of drafting the contract by setting up an internal and interdepartmental unit, a transition team, and a board, as well working groups with external entities. In terms of participation and involvement, several roadmaps were structured to reach all the local ecosystem actors in a progressive path of involvement. The pillars of our, or the drivers of the whole process in building the climate city contracts are governance, engagement, and science-based approach. The contract, as I already said, has been submitted to the Commission in March this year, and now it is under evaluation, their evaluation. But the commitment of the city, climate neutrality 2030, is also shown by the relaunching the Torino City Lab in line with the smart life paradigm and with the aim of contributing the ecological and digital transformation of the territory. In this, let's say, big complex process, Torino City Lab is considered a framework initiative that engages actors on shared objectives. And we work mainly in 3 different ways to support the mission. Meeting with private stakeholders. Within the involvement process, 2 workshops have been held so far. One dedicated to the world of business and startups, and one dedicated to the third sector organization. Both workshops were the first step to start a dialogue with them, and the workshop helped identify needs and proposals useful for drafting the climate city goals. Secondly, Torino, as a part of our main initiative, promotes experimental activities in areas related to climate neutrality. We call it climate tech sector. So we are talking about energy system, waste and circular economy, green infrastructure, and nature-based solution in our urban built environment, digital solution, and other enabling action for involvement and education. And in this latter field, the education field, the City Lab includes a laboratory dedicated to technological innovation for education. We named it ENoLL. It's a lab physically embedded in a secondary school in Torino that hosts testing activities with companies and researchers on innovative educational models and co. One of the focal points of its activity is the ecological transition, applied not only to school-based buildings, but also to the promotion of sustainable lifestyle based on circularity. And the circular economy is one of our topics under the mission. The CCCCCP has recently launched a specific call for action to find stakeholders interested in building and testing under real conditions innovative circular economic solutions related to food production, distribution, marketing, and so on. And more calls and opportunities in a related topics will come. And one of them has been published today and is dedicated to support the activity in schools dedicated to climate resilience. So this is just a short overview of what we are doing to support the mission. Of course, there are others related activities managed by the University Lab, like other living lab called To Move, dedicated to open a context for innovation focused on mobility, within that mobility is as a service paradigm. And finally, also the EU, as mentioned before, the EU projects, Horizon Europe, Interreg, and other direct funding programs from the community or the Commission represent a source of funding that supports our commitment to the EU mission, and more generally, the alignment of policy with our strategic assets and political address.
Very good. Thank you, Riccardo. Thank you. Riccardo, I explained to the audience, because I know the Torino ecosystem there, and because you are very active in mobility, and I'm leading the Thessaloniki Smart Mobility Living Lab, and we're collaborating a lot. That, as I said before in the introduction, the living labs are not project-based. They are ecosystems that are there. So, however, what we hear here today from Riccardo is that with the opportunity of the mission, let's say, of preparing the climate neutral contract and take the, let's say, and create the action plan, you have created this these living labs, this city lab as a living lab, embracing different initiatives that we know that are there in different sectors like mobility. I would like to invite you, first of all, to join the working group of the transition, because this is one way of achieving transition, systemic transition, that is needed for the cities. I mean, the working group of ENoLL, where we are participated. Also, I can share with you that I invite you in Thessaloniki, because for the Thessaloniki action plan and for climate neutrality, we did the job together with others, but we don't have such a, let's say, harmonized and power city club. That is a best practice. Thank you very much, Riccardo. And now we go to Arthur. Arthur Serra, Deputy Director of I2CAT, Collaboratives Catalonia. Arthur, you are the collaboration for the society. Looking forward.
Okay. First of all, the goal of this meeting is just learning from each other. We'll start with what Living Labs and ENoLL are learning from mission and partnerships. Because mission is something new, not only for us, but also for the European programs. Maybe the old ancestor is this kind of mission of Jesuits, I don't know. But what I know is that Mazzucato introduced a few years ago this idea. And Mazzucato took this idea not for the religious missions, or maybe yes, but for the military missions, because she understood how it works, the American research and innovation ecosystem. And I see research and innovation because in the America, in relation with Europe, they don't differentiate research and innovation. For them, it's the same, because they have this from after the Second World War. If you have seen the Oppenheimer mission, this is the mission, is building a bomb. And that means that scientists join with engineers to develop this mission. Mm-hmm. And this is very important for Europe, because Europe has still a little bit this kind of separation, dramatic, between research on one side, science, and technology and innovation in the other side. It doesn't weigh. Missions we need to learn, because ENoLL is just in the middle. ENoLL is research and innovation at the same time. Mm-hmm. And we have a new field that we call a social high-tech. This is what, in my opinion, is Living Labs. Living Labs is the social high-tech needed for putting technology and society together. And this is if we have this mission approach, it's very easy to arrive to the Living Labs. This is my surprise, that for the first time we have the mission interested in Living Lab. not ENoLL interested in Living Lab, but the people that lead missions in the European Commission. This is something new. In the last almost 20 years, we preached in the desert about living labs, user-centered, but we didn't have the way and the program of mission that connect necessarily research and innovation, technology, and people. And this is the moment of the European Union. The European Union is discovering and adapting for Europe, not copying exactly the military mission-driven project of the American, but adapting to the values and to the goals of the European Union. And this is very important because we can tell that we develop not only digital high-tech, but social high-tech together. All these speakers, what they have spoken is about how people relate to each other, new ways of people relating each other. They didn't talk about digital machine, they talk about social interactions, intellectual interactions, innovation interactions between people. You can put machine in the middle, but we are talking about people-to-people new relationship. This is a Living Lab, what it's about. And this is very important. We need to learn and introduce the mission-driven research and innovation in the Living Lab community. And this is the way that we can offer the Living Lab suggestion also to mission. What we can offer to the mission in European Union. First of all, missions needs Living Labs, but Living Labs needs professionals of Living Labs. When we say that Living Lab is a persistent innovation ecosystem, we need that we have developed a new professional that need to keep and lead this kind of new environment. This is not just a methodology that you take and you out as a project. No, this is a new research field. And because it's a research field, it's also an innovative field. And because of that, we need professionals on Living Labs to developing this kind of persistent approach. This is very important for us. And finally, these challenges and these missions are European, but also are global. Some of them are members of the Sustainable Development Goals, but now the United Nations is developing a new agenda for the Secretary General, and that offers enormous opportunities to expand in this international community, Living Labs beyond Europe. And that could be a good contribution to this new general agenda. And Europe has not only missions and European partnerships, there is another big program called international partnerships, is DG UNPAD, that we recently discovered. We normally have only the vision for the European Union. This is 95 billion euros, but there is another enormous project called international partnerships. It's called Europe Gateway. There are 75 billion euros dedicated to international cooperation. The European Union is the major donor for international cooperation in the world. If we can join missions, partnerships, international partnerships, and Living Labs, I think we can do a lot of jobs in the next years. And these are my points.
Thank you very much. That is very at the point, things about the future. I was expecting that in the conclusion remark, but indeed, we need to educate the people who play the central role in this. Let's say, a group of people that represents organizations, associations, or whatever from different stakeholders categories, and create this trust, and create and emphasize and see how we can create a value proposition for everybody to be engaged. So it needs a knowledge, multidisciplinary knowledge, and indeed is a very good thing. It's a difficult work. It needs education. It needs people with specific talents and specific education to do it. The international cooperation, yes, indeed, the Living Labs and the ENoLL can make it. Can make a lot. And at the end, the fact that the missions ask for the Living Labs is because when the problems become very complex, nobody can save it. So you need to be all together in order to have the solution. And then, of course, Living Lab and the ENoLL methodology gives the answer. So we have minors 3 minutes, no, minors 6 minutes, to make a concluding remark of 1 minute of each one of you. So please, let's say closing remark, about what you take with you for today, if you want to say something about what to do, how the mission can use more the ENoLL, how the missions can use more the living labs, how we constitutionalize the living labs, because we say living labs, it is different type of forms and entities. Just a statement of half a minute. Mr. Bamidis.
That's very challenging, in fact, but if I can just borrow your words and say, how do we educate? We had an earlier discussion a few minutes ago. We try to bring students, for example, I'm in the medical school, can bring medical students together with patients and professionals, researchers, and utilize the notion of living labs so that they can understand each other. That's beneficial mutually, of course, and it is preparing the grounds. That's all it's doing. But then you need further actions like proper governance models and proper pushing policies so that this idea of living labs that is co-created now in another level can actually help the mission, can actually help the city and all these things. And I think there we have to sort of get a little bit out of our silo, not talk about only health or cancer, but then collaborate between different missions. I think the work that you have been doing in transitions is very important for the health of people in the city. Anyway.
I invite everybody to join the transition working group, living lab of ENoLL. Yes, please.
Yeah, it seems that we need more proselytism. In the same way that the percentage of voting for the European Parliament is very low, I think that the mission knowledge is also low. So living labs need to be one of the catalyzers for mobilizing or at least trying to solve complex challenges, because we are talking about complex challenges. And in my opinion, we cannot give simple solutions to complex challenges. We need complex ecosystems. Living Lab is complex because we need to have the citizen on the center. This is not easy. We need to engage this citizen not as a validator but as a co-designer of the solutions. This is complex. So all this make us just to move and to make this kind of mission just as important. So I think that the complicity of living labs can help the complicity of missions.
Thank you. Let's take it from first from Ricardo. Ricardo, would you like to have a closing statement?
Yes. Sorry, I just lost something. Well, definitely, Life Lab is a useful tool and a methodology, above all, to approach the complexity in an interdisciplinary way and put it together, different experience and knowledge. But also, it's also very important to go beyond the project timing. And so the challenge is to try to have a sort of permanent living lab in sectors or in key sectors or activities. So the challenge is to go and to reach some long-term perspective that living lab has itself.
Very good. Cross-sectorial living labs, therefore, and not just referring to living labs about methodologies and co-creation, etc., but develop about bodies having a role in the organization of the ecosystems and leading the ecosystems to reach their complex objectives. And finally, Arthur, your statement.
Yes, I will start with an example. Before we heard from Mario Zian, the 4P CAN project. Okay, this is about cancer, but it's not the traditional way to deal with cancers, because what he's suggesting is the better way to engage citizens is preventing, promoting health instead of just cure the cancer with a drug. Okay, and this is that connect the living labs with the cancer in a new way to treating cancer is through prevention. And prevention and promotion of is what we learned from the COVID. When the COVID attacked Europe and the world, the problem was not the patient and the doctor, because it's a problem not for the patient, but for the whole society, the whole citizens. And the discourse was, don't bring to the hospital, because you come to the hospital, everyone, you will collapse the traditional health system. Keep healthy in your home. And the idea is, in these moments, we need to transform, we can transform from the engagement of the citizens and helping the healthcare, traditional healthcare systems, not going everyone to the doctor-patient traditionship, but going in a promotion on healthy to keep healthy. And this connection between doctors and the citizens is radically new, because the doctor needs to relate it not with the patient, but with the whole citizens. We learned that. We developed in living labs on healthy well-being. We have a European project called Integer. Unfortunately, we are still not connected with the cancer approach of this 4P camp project, but we will do it, because this is one of the pillars of the European model of society. After the Second World War, we didn't invent an atomic bomb, but we invented universal systems in health and in education. And these two pillars are pillars of the European model. If we can change with the living labs the health pillar with this novel approach, we will do a lot of job.
Very good. Thank you, Arthur. Indeed, it's going to be a challenging period. We're going to have elections in 1 week. Okay. And I'm leading the Smart Mobility Living Labs with no project. Nobody was speaking about living labs at the moment. I don't know if ENoLL was there in 2012. Yes, it was there. I was not aware. Then I heard about Mr. Pamidis and the documents. Very good. So, and still, I get the problem. Who's going to play a role of putting all these people first together, and then there are groups of other peoples and capacities after my retirement? So yes, we need a new generation of people who can do this. And the second is, it's a question they are asking me. They said, you are always speaking about innovative solutions and innovations. Okay, we have an innovative driven economy developed in Europe, and that was driven by the companies. What is the paradigm shift now? Usually I say now the innovation is called by the citizens and the society. So it's the societal innovation that drives the new collaborations and coalitions. And I think Living Labs and ENoLL is giving the good answers to that very challenging period. Have a nice vote for your elections. We should not miss voting for that. Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us. And I think now it's the conclusion. Let's give a round to our panelists.
Thank you very much to all the speakers, to all the moderators. I really think we had a very engaging morning and conversations. We all have learned a lot about what Living Labs are, what they can do, what is expected from us and from our community to contribute not only to the missions and the partnership, but really to the transition towards a better society, a better world for everyone. So I will not be long because we are already late. I would like to invite you for lunch and also to stay for the afternoon session where we are going to dig in a little bit more on the European partnerships and how European partnership have a different approach but similar goals that are impact driven, and that impact can be again sustained by the Living Lab approach. So have a good lunch and see you at 2. Thank you very much.
Okay.